Call the full city council meeting, February 4th, 2020. The clerk will call the roll to record attendance.
Anderson Burgos.
Here.
Bartley.
Here.
Graney.
Here.
Hernandez.
Here.
Leahy.
Present.
LeBron Martinez. Lisi. Here. McGee.
Here.
McGivern.
Here.
Murphy.
Here.
Sullivan.
Here.
Tallman.
Here.
Bacon.
Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. God bless America.
to the city of Holyoke.
And City Council.
We'll go right to item 1, which is items laid on the table. The first one is December 17th meetings. I've been informed they're still working on those, so they need a little more time for the narratives. So item 2 would be the Committee on Ordinance was referred that the City Council review and update Section 102-34, which is collection of fees for the Code of Ordinance. This recommended that the order be adopted. And we do now have legal
Take it
form.
up for discussion.
All right,
Second.
Under discussion, Councilor Lisi.
Ryan, do we have the updated? Yeah, I think because Crystal has been out sick, we never got the information that we needed because there were two different orders filed with two different schedules, and we just wanted to differentiate and be sure which one we would be moving on. So I think it needs to stay on the table for now.
2 and 3 should stay laid on the table until we
Just under
get the
discussion, Mr. President?
Councilor Bartley.
Just, I did follow up with, as I said I would, with this one. So I typed up a memo to the administrative assistant, but I know he's had a couple thingamajigs. So we'll just remind him to get that out this coming week.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, so those will stay on the table, and then 4 was the...
Leave it on the table for now.
Leave it on the table? Okay.
Yes.
So next is public comment. I do have the list. We have 7 signed up for public comment. The first is Doug Arnold of 34 Disco Lane, Holyoke. Just as a reminder for those who are speaking, the time limit is roughly 1.5 minutes to 2 minutes. Just letting you know.
Thank you. I'm speaking tonight regarding item 18 on the agenda. We are asking the City Council to look at the other side of school receivership, beyond the public relation clips that we see each day. The main purpose of receivership was to raise the test scores of our students. 5 years later, we are in the same place we were. The test scores have not kept up with the other schools in the state. We lost local control of our school system because the State Department of Secondary and Elementary Education said that they could do it better here in Holyoke. During this time, the school system has lost over 600 veteran teachers, administrators, and staff. As of October 1st of this school year, 425 city students are attending other public schools in the surrounding cities and towns. Before another receivership comes and before we pick another receiver, we hope that elected officials and citizens of Holyoke will look at what losing local control has done to us. We need to find out why the teachers are leaving. We need to find out why the students are leaving. And we need to find out when receivership will end, if ever. Thank you.
Thank you. The next speaker is from South Hadley, and as I look at the list, there are 2 other speakers from out of town. Motion would
Motion
be
to
to
suspend
the
necessary
rules.
rules.
to allow them to speak. All those in favor? All those opposed? Next is Charlene Mahoney of 16 Cedar Ridge, South Hadley.
Yes.
Is that correctly?
Yes, thank you. Good evening. I taught in Holyoke for 30 years, most of the time at the high school, and was the math data assessment director my last 5 years prior to retirement in 2015. I am speaking on behalf of all the teachers who signed the letter mentioned in item number 18 on today's agenda. While we no longer work in the schools and some of us don't live in Holyoke, we come together to share our concerns because we had a bond with each other and the students that only Holyoke teachers can understand. Since the receivership took over in the schools in 2015, there have been many changes and decisions which we disagreed with. Some of us expressed our concerns, but most of us stood back and watched and hoped these changes would work for the students. Unfortunately, this has not been the case. We shared some data to indicate this in our letter and have additional data for all grade levels, but will only share high school data today. As you know, data can be analyzed in different ways. In our letter, we use GAP data for MCAS, and today we are using comparison rank with other cities and towns. As in our letter, we are comparing proficiency performance and meeting exceeding expectations. Grade 10 MCAS math was 7th lowest in the state in 2015 before receivership and declined to 2nd lowest in 2019. Grade 10 ELA was 2nd lowest in 2015 and improved to 3rd lowest in the state in 2019. Grade 10 Science was 7th lowest in 2015 and declined to 3rd lowest in 2019. The following are advanced placement average yearly passing percentages before and after receivership. AP Calculus went from 85.2% average yearly passing rate before receivership to 2.7% average yearly passing rate after receivership. AP English went from 45.1 average yearly passing to 31.1. AP Science...
2 minutes, just to let you know, 2 minutes.
Okay, thank you. Can I finish? Or?
Yeah, no,
okay, it's
yeah.
almost done. AP Science went from 35.8% passing to 18.2% passing after receivership. I just read 6 pieces of data and only 1 increased. We asked again, how can graduation rate be increasing? We hope that you share our concerns so that we can work together with you and all interested parties to improve the education of the children of Holyoke. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is Mary Mew, if I'm saying that correct, of 194 North Main Street, Florence, Mass.
Good evening. I retired from the Holyoke Public Schools in June 2018. I am here tonight to address item 18 on the agenda in regard to our letter which touched upon the lowering of standards at Holyoke High School. When I first started at Holyoke High School in 2005, it was understood that we had difficulties that other school districts did not share. However, what we did have was order and structure, which seemed to sharply decline after receivership. For example, prior to receivership, students were held accountable for absences and tardiness. The last 3 to 5 years that I taught at Holyoke High School, students caught on real fast that there would be no consequences for not attending class or coming in tardy. By the time I retired in 2018, many students were absent 20, 30, 40 days from class and tardy to class anywhere up to 70 times, with very few experiencing consequences. Teachers would submit AWOL slips on a daily basis, but would rarely receive any responses. Many students were failing due to excessive absences from their classes, yet the solution would be to ask teachers to provide makeup work. Prior to receivership, students needed to earn a 50% average in order to qualify for summer school. After receivership, students need to earn 0% average for the year to qualify. This is certainly not an incentive for students to work their hardest during the school year. Prior to receivership, we had teachers on hall duty, which would minimize students wandering the halls and ensuring that students were in class. After receivership, the hall duties were at a minimum, and there could be at least 20 to 30 students wandering the halls unsupervised. Administration thought the solution to our concerns was to empower the teachers to control every issue in our classrooms with minimum enforcement from them. By making the teachers the sole...
2 minutes, just to let you know, 2 minutes.
Okay. We were now in the position of being the bad guys, which seriously hindered our relationships with the students. Due to just the few examples mentioned herein, we cannot see how the increase in graduation rates could possibly be due to an increase in student performance. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is Elizabeth Butter from 64 Mount Tom Ave, East Hampton. Butler?
Yeah.
Butler, oh, sorry.
Good evening. My name is Elizabeth Butler. I was born and raised and made my home in Holyoke for 45 years. For 13 of those years, I was educated in the Holyoke public school system. And for 22 more of those years, I served the city proudly as an educator. When I began my career here, I expected this was where it would end as well. Sadly, the reality is it will not. I resigned my position at Holyoke High School a year and a half ago, and though I did so willingly, I did not do so wantingly. I spent 4 years post-receivership working vigilant and ever passionate about the students in my classroom, school, and city. I also spent those 4 years worried about the future of the school system I devoted my life to, and even more specifically, the integrity of my own school community that I love so much. I am not an exception. There are more than 600 educators just like me, individuals who are dedicated, invested, and passionate about their jobs, their schools, and students. These individuals are no longer part of your school system. While there are many exceptional educators, staff, and administrators still within the Holyoke Public Schools, it's time to recognize those that have left, and more importantly, the reasons why they left. For too long, you have remained quiet and complacent. We all have. You've remained dutiful to the state while politely dismissing the individuals that were the heart and soul of your schools. You sat quietly by while their seniority, their basic union protections, their sick time, and even their safety was taken from them. At Holyoke High School alone, more than 70 teachers, staff, and administrators have left their positions in just the last few years. 4 more have made this decision in just the last few weeks. Let that sink in. Many of these individuals had 15, 20, and even 25 years in service to their credit. It's also not a lack of talent, as most have been sought after and swept up by neighboring districts who reap the benefits of your educational missteps. It's time to ask the individuals entrusted with your students' success and your taxpayers' money for answers. It's time to ask why they spend so much time focused on teacher recruitment and none on teacher retention. It's time to talk about the other side of receivership, the view from the inside. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is Lori Marvel from 17 Keith Ave.
Good evening. Work hard, be kind, get smarter. This motto was found in the current Holyoke High School Program of Studies. In processing these words, we wonder, are they simply words on a page, or do they truly mean something? Are they embedded in the culture of the high school? Coaches Bill Regali, Tom Brassel, and Kevin Roberts worked hard, exuded kindness, and helped their players get smarter. With a combined 85 years of coaching at Holyoke High School, they led their teams to multiple winning seasons, championship trophies, and individual honors for both the players and coaches. These coaches emphasized to their players that they were students first and athletes second. Their players worked hard and got smarter because of them. Why were they dismissed? Does experience matter? We all wonder. Where was the kindness, the respect, the acknowledgement of their experience, dedication, and contributions to Holyoke High School and the citizens of Holyoke? We were outraged when these 3 exceptional coaches were dismissed, and many of us contacted the school committee, the high school administration, and the receiver, all to no avail. What recourse do the citizens of Holyoke have? We come here wondering, what is this new direction? The outrageous dismissal of Bill Regali, Tom Brassel, and Kevin Roberts is emblematic of what is happening at Holyoke High School. We all dedicated ourselves to being the best for our students, our best to the Bellamy Award-winning Holyoke High School, and our best to the citizens of Holyoke. Our hope is that our words will be considered tonight and that our concerns matter. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is Paula Marcotte of 146 Fairmont Street.
Good evening. With regard to item 18 on today's agenda, 5 people have spoken before me. Many in tonight's audience, myself included, support the statements that they have made. Please understand that we are all here this evening speaking as a group. We have all taught in the Holyoke Public Schools. Some of us are still teaching, but with sadness have exited the system to go elsewhere. Some of us are concerned retired teachers. Many of us are residents and taxpayers here in our beloved city. We have children and grandchildren in the schools. There are also several not in attendance this evening who are in total support of our activity tonight. Since children are the future of our community and every community, and since we are all very dissatisfied with changes within our schools as a result of the state takeover, we are seeking information and answers as to how the state will move forward in the future. We are hopeful that a serious and sincere dialogue will continue, and it will be beneficial to all of us, especially Holyoke's children. Just as an aside, I'm going to make a personal statement. I taught for 34 years. I was always proud to say I was a Holyoke Public Schools teacher, and I loved being able to tell people that the Holyoke Public Schools were the best kept secret in Western Massachusetts, when people would be alarmed that I taught in Holyoke. In conclusion, City Councilors, thank you for your time this evening and for your attention to our concern.
Thank you. Last on the list is Andres, I can't read the last name, but 79 Lawler Street.
Last name is Court, and I had no idea that the 6 people preceding me were going to be talking about the school and were former teachers at Holyoke High School. I'm a current teacher at Holyoke High School. I've been in the system for about 6 months, so I'm a newbie. I've lived in Holyoke for about 6 months as well. I'm so privileged to be in my position and so grateful for the kids at Holyoke, because they really just like fill me with so much happiness, and they're just like so excited to be with each other. But at the same time, the school, I feel like the system is very much doing them a disservice. It's so clear. I have administrators leaving. My direct advisor who hired me, who I was very close with, is also leaving. Other teachers are leaving. My co-teachers, we just got an influx of students because of the earthquakes in Puerto Rico. And so my co-teachers are now have to take on more classes. So my students are not getting the great dynamics that they were getting in the class. Yeah, I think the receivership, it's very clear that this really unique situation we have here in Holyoke, it's not something that they're ready to handle. And I think it just really requires like local direct action, which like as a young person who really cares about the future a lot, like environmentally, sustainably, I care about this stuff, and I think we should be teaching these kids how to be preparing for the future, because there are going to be more hurricanes, there are going to be more earthquakes, and this receivership is not preparing us to actually be a resilient community. It's just preparing us to be to lay over and play dead, and we're just losing our support left and right. And I had no idea 600 teachers have left in the past 5 years. That's
2 minutes.
Yeah, that's really says a lot. And I had no idea 6 teachers were going to be preceding me, so that also says a lot. Thank you.
There was no one else that signed up for public comment. Motion to go out of order to item 18.
Second. Motion to receive and send to public service.
So going to item 18. All those in favor? All opposed?
Excuse me, sir. I would like to send that to DGNR. I think that's a governmental thing, not public service.
Councilor Vacan had the floor first.
Thank you, Mr. President. I just want to comment that while we're looking at item 18, that I have an order that's been tabled in ordinance since December relative to setting up the school study committee that would relate to looking at our entire system. Originally, of course, it was focused on the building of 2 middle schools, after the state had recommended, of course, that we don't have middle schools. And so my order is intended to involve people like the people that were at the microphone tonight in a dialogue and discussion about what is the best model and what are the best solutions for our community. And so that when An official building committee is appointed by the mayor under a reapplication to the state. That official committee can be informed by the broader community. In December, we asked legal to give us legal form. In January, legal form was sought again, and I urged the chair and the committee to take this up at our very next meeting so that we can get the broader input. 65% of our voters spoke. We need to listen, we need to open up the dialogue and expand the voices. Thank you.
Councilor Graney.
Yes, I think that this letter should go to DGNR. I spent 20 years of my life teaching at Holyoke High School. This is a governmental issue. I spent the 20 years of my life that were there. There were 2 accreditations at the state level, and every person who came in to accredit Holyoke High School said they would die for a high school like Holyoke High School. And this is over a period of 20 years, 2 evaluations. So I'm listening to what the teachers have to say tonight, and I think this should go to DGNR.
Councilor Leahy.
Yeah, thank you. I don't have any issue with that. I think it should go to DGNR. I just selfishly wanted it in my committee because of the people in the audience. We got Coach Regali, Coach Brassel. We have Mrs. Regali, can't forget Mrs. Regali. Mrs. Falsetti, Liz Butler, not Butter. We have Mr. Fernandez, Charlie Mahoney, Mrs. O'Neill, Mrs. Marvel, Mrs. Marcotte, all these people I'm saying. These are the people that when I was at the high school, that's why we said Hail Holyoke High School. We didn't say Hail Holyoke High School because of the receivership. We said Hail Holyoke High School because these educators, these teachers are the ones that taught us. And you know what? I'm thinking I did okay. I'm thinking my son Brendan, he did okay. I'm thinking what is happening is a disservice the state is doing to the city of Holyoke. Like this young educator just said, I mean, he's surprised. He's surprised that 600 people just left. I have a very good friend of mine, Mike Richard, who's no longer with West Springfield, but he's a former Holyoke person, and he went to West Springfield, and the first day when he was the superintendent, he asked everybody to raise their hands, and he said, how many people are coming from Holyoke? And he could not believe how many people rose their hands. It was a lot of people. Now, I'm just a kid from Holyoke. That's where my story started, but I'm not the only one. There's a lot of people like me. Todd McGee, he's one of them. You got Joe McGivern. We've got these people that started in Holyoke, we finished in Holyoke, we're Holyoke strong, and I got to be careful because what happened with Coach Regali and Coach Roberts, Coach Brassel, I got to be very careful because we're in a public forum and I don't want to say anything that I'll regret. But read between the lines. Holyoke strong. Thank you.
Councilor Murphy.
I mean, I certainly think this goes to a committee for sure, and it's an issue that, to me, should be the joint committee between school committee and city council.
Why?
Several reasons. Number one, because this is primarily an educational issue in terms of both things that have gone wrong and the direction that they're looking to go now, and obviously the discussion needs to include those. We also had a meeting last night, and the state education commissioner is already trying to get into a receiver, and I know several of the comments at the meeting last night were that the city should be involved in this, not being told what's going to happen, but be involved in the process. If it goes to DGR, I'm fine with that. It should, but we need to get all of the players. And one of the things that has to happen, education can't be an exclusive issue with the rest of the government. We got to all work together. There's definitely, I mean, when I heard about, and I didn't know Coach Roberts, but I knew Coach Brassel, who I coached against. I knew Coach Regali. I've been involved as a coach at Dean School. I mean, the way that whole process happened is a disgrace. And that's nothing about the people that got the jobs. They may be very well qualified, but you don't treat people that way. And those are all kinds of things that are happening in the schools. So, I mean, if it goes to DGR, I'm fine, but I do think it's an educational issue. It's an educational issue in terms of standards. It's an educational issue in terms of providing opportunity, but doing it the right way. So whichever way it goes, I'd be fine, but I would be like to have it go to the Joint Committee on Council and School Committee.
Councilor Bartley.
Thank you. Well, as the chairman of the Foresight Committee. Oh, I think I generally run a pretty good meeting, and it's pretty well organized. And we've had large groups before the committee that I chair multiple times. I'll happily have this be referred. The meeting, Mr. President, the date is already set. It'll be March 9th at 6 o'clock. So I try to be organized. This will be on the agenda that night. I'll have it at or near the top of the agenda, and it'll be televised. I just really appreciate all of the comments made tonight. I think we should maybe consider reading the letter into the record, Mr. President. We've been known to do that, whether we do it tonight or committee or when it comes back out of committee. I know we have a long agenda, but I can't think of anything more important than the public schools. It's just an amazing situation that we're in right now, Mr. President, because we have essentially a completely emasculated, impotent school committee. And now the system that we know, which we were all brought up in, is turned on its head. That we have school matters before the city council. I'm glad that they're here. As you know, we had a pretty contentious election last year. Only 3 of us voted to try to prevent that election from happening because we didn't think it was the best interest of the city, not because it was the best interest of the schools. We didn't think it was the best interest of the city. I think we heard the Ward 5 councilor mention the statistics from that election. It doesn't need to be repeated because we all vote and we know how that went. I think we also heard the Ward 5 city councilor mention the importance of a new committee, that has a little less self-interest, like the old committee, Mr. President, when you had Fontaine Brothers on that committee, you had architects on that committee, you had consultants on that committee with a vested interest in seeing the schools developed and seeing that ballot question go forward. So, and by the way, Mr. President, as we all pointed out, we had a mayor on that committee that attended exactly 0 meetings of that school building committee. Exactly 0. So, here we are. I duly noted the statistics that that the teachers referenced. I hope that they can bring in more statistics and possibly back them up in writing. I'll reach out to them. I have their emails and I have the letter. I'll reach out to them this week, and we'll have a robust meeting on Monday, March 9th, here at City Council at 6 o'clock. Thank you.
Councilor Lisi.
Thank you. I just wanted to say we did take up the order about the, school committee, school building study committee on January 14th. And I think it's just like some of the other issues. Crystal's been out, and so she hasn't been able to draft things into legal order, but I did meet with Crystal today, and so that will probably be coming up on, not the next meeting, but the one following that on the 25th. Okay, so just wanted to make a note that I'll be coming up on the 25th of February. And then the other thing that I wanted to say was I actually support the order going to the joint committee because I really think that what we need to do is support. I agree that our school committee is somewhat emasculated at this point in time under receivership, and I think that our job as the city council and through the joint committee would be to help the school committee develop some chops and ways and means to advocate for what we need in the schools. They are our voice still. And so we as citizens, as teachers, and as other community members, we need to really build a bridge and a pathway for how we can get our needs, wants, and desires out to the school committee so that the school committee can then put some pressure and oversight on the receiver. Now, I understand that the institutional structure isn't set up so that the school committee can manage the receiver, but They do have a voice. They do have meetings. And I think that's the pathway that we are able to get the community's voice to the school committee, and then the school committee putting pressure and, just providing some guidance for what the community needs through that body. That's the way that I would like to see it go. I think that makes the most sense, and I think that would be the most productive.
Councilor Anderson Burgos.
I think that we should send this to as many committees as we need to. But what I also believe is that these people that spoke here passionately, they need to be part of that process. Because as I sat here and listened, every word that you said touched my heart. As a community, we need to come together. As a body, we need to come together and figure this out for the future and the education of these children in Holyoke. We are Holyoke strong, and together we can do this. We just have to come together. And I'm all for it. I really am.
Going further, Councilor Graney.
Just quickly, this is a governmental issue. It's Holyoke and it's the state of Massachusetts. It should belong in the D in Councilor Bartley's committee. That's where it's going to get the most proper and quick attention. And it is crucial that we get quick attention.
So the motion was to go to DGNR. That was seconded.
There was a motion, an amended motion to send to.
I didn't hear an amended motion. There was a motion to go to, stop. There was a motion to go to DGNR. That's what was said.
So I'll amend.
The one.
I said on the motion.
Stop. There's people who are going to have to raise their hands and talk. You're out of order, Counselor.
You're hysterical.
Anything else?
And I would make a motion that it go to the joint committee on school, the joint city council and school committee, where education issues need to be discussed that we have input on. And yes, I agree, the state, if we're just talking, if the only issue we're talking is receivership, and we only have so much control on that, but we have, I think we can get a lot more input on the day-to-day decisions and hopefully change some of the scenarios that have been going on by making all parties aware of that. So I'll make that motion as a friendly amendment to send it to the Education Committee.
And I'll second that.
I seconded that. Our discussion, Councilor Bacon.
Thank you, Mr. President. I speak in favor of sending this to DGR. The reality that we're in is that the receiver has total control of the schools, regardless of whether the school committee exists by elected result or not. And so properly, I believe the debate belongs in DGR if the main purpose is to talk about the relationship between the city and the state and our schools. That just seems to me to be the right place. Thank you.
All right. So it can go to either or. If you look at our rules that we voted on at the last meeting, it is a school matter, but Councilor Bacon is correct. Since the state receiver took over the school system, it is a government relations issue as well. Councilor Bartley has set up a meeting for March 9th at 6 p.m. to address that issue, to take it up as fast as possible. Those are the two committees that it could go to. The email that I did receive from a few of the people that spoke tonight asked, and I said it could go to public service, because that's also a committee that, as busy as it is, it's not as busy as ordinance, finance, or DGNR, so that was one of the suggestions. Councilor Leahy said right away he'd be more than happy to take up such an issue. However, it can go to DGNR or the Joint School Committee. So with that said, if you want to go to the Joint School Committee, that was on the motion. That was the second motion. Councilor Leahy.
Very quickly, I think that the reason I'm pushing for it just to go to DGNR is this letter came to us. It didn't go to the school committee. I think it was addressed to you, Councilor McGee. And so I believe that's why the people in the audience want it to go. And I'm seeing a lot of heads nodding. And so that's why I'm voting for it to go to DGNR. Thank you.
I fully concur, Councilor Leahy, that it should go to DGNR, as it is a matter where the state took over against our adamant rejection of a receivership. No offense to the receiver, but we were all down at the meeting, down at the War Memorial, and the response that we got from the person who was in charge was he didn't care what we had to say. So my response is it should go to DGNR so we can actually have our say.
Right.
So with that said, the second motion, which is on the floor, is that it go to joint committee. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? No. Oh. The noes would have it. So back to the original motion to go to DGNR. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? The ayes would have it. So for those who are here, those that are at home, item 18 was sent to DGNR, of which there will be a meeting March 9th at 6 p.m. Am I correct, Councilor Bartley?
Correct.
All right. On to item 5 from the mayor, reappointing Ms. Bowler from 26 Clarendon Drive to serve as the Conservation Commission, a 3-year term which will expire February 1st, 2023.
Make a motion to reappoint.
A second.
Motion is to reappoint.
It's under discussion, Mr. President.
Under discussion, Councilor Bartley.
We had this before, so I don't want to put words in any counselor's mouth, but we had a conversation before about whether or not we want to have them reviewed because of the importance of the committee. So I don't know if the counselor, I'm not making that motion, but the counselor made that motion is here, so I don't know if he wants to do the same thing again.
Councilor Sullivan, with regards to
The
this
same,
one?
I'd like a chance to review, especially these critical appointments that are critical to the development within the city.
All right, so motion by Councilor Sullivan is to
Second.
refer to public service. It was seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? So 5 is to public service. 6 is a letter from the mayor appointing. So this would be
Public service.
a new one, so that would have to go to public
Public
service
service.
for the first
Second.
time. So this one to public service, and this is for the Historical Commission. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? 7 is from the city clerk and from our city administrator with regards to January 21st minutes. Any questions on this
Motion
one?
received.
Motion
Second.
is to receive.
I'll make a motion that there's a few amendments that need to be made.
All right, so how about we table it, send in the amendments, or do you have just a few?
There's just 2.
Okay, 2, okay. Where are you?
On page 5, the very top of it where it says under discussion, that conversation with Councilor Bartley and Councilor Anderson Burgo should go with the order regarding the United Bank in 1830 Northampton Street. So it didn't relate to the Main Street. It related to the Northampton Street. So that's one change. And then the other one is on the page 16, the second last page, on the order that I filed regarding the public safety meeting, which will be coming up. If I'm not mistaken, that is the order that everybody signed on to, not the order regarding the order that got referred to the joint committee.
So say that one again on that one, Counselor?
On the second to last page, the order that I filed regarding the meeting with the Public Safety Committee and the chief,
Yep.
I believe that is the order that everybody on the council co-signed on or agreed to sign on, and not the one below it.
So
I
it
just want to
says,
make that
Murphy, order that
right.
Public Safety Committee meet with it, so add all names. That's what you're
All
saying?
those names should be on that and not on the one below it.
Hey, Joe.
They just, everybody's name got added to the one below, not the one that it was intended for. Because the other one is an education, and that was just the order that I filed, and I don't think anybody wanted to co-sign that.
Okay, so page 5 is under discussion. Counselor Bartley spoke with and stated that is with regards to the United Bank.
Correct.
And 16 is to add where it says Murphy order that the Public Safety Committee meet with the chief, so on, add all names.
Correct.
And then I struck all the names except for yours down at the next one.
Correct.
So with regards to those amendments,
Second.
all those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion is to receive. All those in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Just make a note of that. Okay, number 8 is the community development grant, of which
Yes.
everyone should have their booklet. Everyone
Motion.
have it?
Yes, Mr. President, refer to DGR.
DGNR.
Second.
That's going to DGNR.
Yeah. We will have 2 items on that agenda, as it turns out. We will have schools, and then we'll have this,
It'll be a busy night.
and that's it.
That's it.
We're not going to have a 4-hour, 45-minute repeat of last night, I can assure you.
But we
So,
will try.
We will, well, not if I chair it. No, thanks. We will move it along. Thank you.
Counselor Anderson Burgos.
Yeah, I'd like to make a motion to withdraw item number 6. It's supposed to be Historic District Commission. This is false or incorrect. So they'd have to resubmit it.
They have to resubmit it?
Yeah.
All right, so item 6 is to reconsider our action.
Did we actually take a final vote on the motion to send?
Yeah. So 8 is to send a DGNR. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? 6 to reconsider because it wasn't filed correctly.
Point of order?
Yep, Counselor.
Mr. President?
What?
It's supposed to be the historical district.
Historical district, so they're.
Can amend that?
Do you want, are they asking to amend it or are they asking to withdraw the
I mean,
person?
does she not want to do it, or?
Well,
I think it's because it's the mayor's letter that's incorrect.
the letter's incorrect, not just a typo in the
Oh.
agenda. So they'll submit a new letter, or you can take up the change. But at some point, we need paperwork to match.
Well, why don't we just
Amend the order.
amend or just have a late file? Just,
So what should the letter read as?
Whatever.
it's not,
No, hold on, to legal, what should it read as?
It should be the Historic District Commission that she's getting appointed to,
Historic
Dark District.
and we'll get a letter sent over so that it matches in the file.
District.
So why don't we just leave this in committee and you can send the other one as just as a correction. I think it's the same thing. I don't see the, Counselor McGivern.
We just have to ask for a replacement order.
Right.
We can't amend a mayor's letter.
Right,
Yeah.
so just send a new one for next meeting, it'll be taken up. So we don't have to reconsider 6. 2, 9, be 9,
9
10,
through
11,
13 as a
12,
package,
13
please.
As a package, suspending the rules, all those in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? This is required a form of a vote, submitted a statement of interest, having an open meeting on 2/4/2020 prior to the SOI submission closing date. The City Council of Holyoke, in accordance with the charter, bylaws, and ordinances, has voted to authorize the superintendent to submit to the MSBA, and it's all different schools. We have the Dean campus at 1045 Main Street. Number 10 is the Donahue School. Number 11 is Ian White School. 12 is Morgan School. And 13 is Sullivan School with regards to replacement of roof, windows, so on and so forth with all of these. Counselor Lisi.
Motion received for the Committee on Finance.
Second.
Second.
Motion is to receive these and send them to finance. Any discussion? No?
I just wanted to make a note that these are all accelerated repairs for specific items within each of the schools.
Yep.
And just wanted folks at home to understand that.
So you're all set, Whitney? Okay. So with that, to finance, all those in favor?
Aye.
All opposed?
that's okay.
What?
It's all good.
Motion is suspend the rules to allow Mr. Anderson to
We're under
speak.
suspension.
Good evening, councilors. What you have before you tonight is actually, it's an application to the state. It's a non-appropriation, so there is nothing for finance to consider at this point. But what it does is it allows us to enter into that process, of which is prescribed that we must complete a voice vote or a vote from the entire council to send along with our statement of interest, which shows that Holyoke is here, Holyoke is ongoing in their ownership of their schools, and they're interested in making repairs and complying with their initial deadlines. There is no financial commitment to this statement of interest that we're attempting to do tonight. So I would prefer that what we would do then is to submit this to the state tonight based on your recommendation, and then from there, the state would contact us back to see if we would even be invited into the program.
Motion
So
reconsider.
this is similar to a number at a deli counter, but you're not even able to order anything quite yet. So this is just a preliminary type of an approach that we would need to file on a timely basis with a vote of the complete council.
So this is just to start the process?
That's right.
And there's no commitment?
There's no
as of yet.
consideration.
Okay. So motion is to reconsider 9 through
Second.
13.
And that they be
Under
received.
discussion, Counselor McGivern.
I appreciate Mr. Anderson, and I understand exactly what he's saying, but reading this on the agenda yesterday for the first time, I'm just interested, is this going to lead to bonding?
Right.
I mean, we just went through a debacle with the Commonwealth of Massachusetts and the Board of Education on trying to solidify our school building situation of elementary school, middle schools, and so forth. and we got nothing from them in return, but ugly responses and being told what we can and can't do. If this, has no financial impact down the road, that's one thing. But if this has the potential possible of having to bond or having to vote on bonds down the road, then I think we should have a preliminary discussion before we have a preliminary vote.
To Councilor Bacon.
And I'd just like to speak in support of Councilor McGivern, because as we all know, we voted to fund 20% of plans, and then those votes were used to basically try to compel us to vote for bonds. So I think we should be aware of what the potential liability to the city is. Thank you.
Councilor Murphy.
Yeah, there's 4 schools. Are they all those getting full roofs, or is it just
4 with roofs and 1 with boilers?
And is the entire roof is being replaced in all 4?
There is that possibility.
Okay. And is there any history in terms of how long they've each lasted? Are they all in the same age bracket?
Some of them have been installed as of 1990 with a 15-year warranty, and they're over 30 years old now. So we're biding our time.
Okay,
Go ahead,
thank you.
go ahead.
No, I'm good.
All right.
If I could address Mr. McGivern, Councilor McGivern's question.
I don't have a question, Mr. President, but thank you, Mr. Anderson.
In regards to any obligation that the council would make on behalf of the city, it can be decided after the process is started. We may not even be invited into the process, and there is no obligation tonight. You all could make a determination regarding your desire to proceed on a collective basis, and then refer to committee at that time, and then come back to the full board.
Councilor Graney.
Just point of order. Is there any harm in sending it to finance?
We would perhaps miss the deadline for submittal.
When is the deadline?
February 14th.
And when this was all emailed as part of the package, why wasn't that alerted to everyone?
The deadline was just established by the State Building Authority.
Amazing, isn't it?
It is amazing how they do it.
Absolutely amazing. We have no control over our schools. The State Building Authority just shoves this down our throat. And, what we heard tonight was just the tip of the iceberg of what's going on.
So let me just read the paragraph. Participants sought in the Accelerated Repair Program Category 5 and the other categories, which would be boilers, heating, ventilation, roofs as discussed. Permission is desired at this facility to replace the roof. The City of Holyoke hereby further specifically acknowledges that by submitting this statement of interest, the Mass School Building Authority in no way guarantees the acceptance and approval of the application and awarding the grant. For the vote of the city or Board of Aldermen, Selectmen, government body, a copy of the text vote must be submitted with certification of the town, duly recording the date vote must be provided. For the vote, the school committee, so on and so forth. So there is no commitment. It's just a vote to, as been said, to get in line. But just pointing out that we're just learning about it now.
Mr. President.
Hold on, Councilor Sullivan first.
Thank you. I just, to Councilor Bacon's point, I just want to point out the big difference between this one and what we were faced with the middle schools. There's no study committee, and there's not going to be any consultants or anything like this. This is simple, straightforward roof replacements, boiler replacements. We'll have we have a deadline, and we know how this MSBA is about the deadlines. We miss it, we're out. So this will come back before. I don't like the process either. It is an insult to the whole body, to the whole city. But let's get it on. We'll have our chance at it when it comes back, and we see if there's a match required and what else, what strings and bells and whistles come with it. Right now, we either get on with it or we miss the opportunity altogether.
Yeah. I will agree. The issue is, this is just to get the process started. It has no guarantee of any type of financing that we have to put forward. It is, as everyone has just pointed out, once again, to this city, not a proper way of doing business with us. But once again, you have a deadline that was just established on the 14th. Councilor Bartley.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with more with what the council president said and what Mike said. I also agree with what Joe said as well. But I'll just remind us, or remind myself, but this is not the first time that the school department came in here at the last minute, and even before receivership, they were in here at the last minute looking for our approval to send a statement of interest to Boston. So this goes, when I was here in 2012, 2013, 2014, this happened other times as well. So this is pre-Zreich, pre-receiver. This is par for the course with the school department. So I mean, I don't take the same perspective as maybe others do about, and well, in this one narrow case about the Commonwealth. Ironically, Mr. President, we're going to finally take a vote on the bond, on the middle school bond tonight. So that's also before it's in finance. But I mean, whatever the will says, but I'm of the opinion that we should move this along tonight. Yeah. Thank you.
Councilor Graney.
Yes, could we just move a friendly amendment that the Finance Committee will be kept informed of the process of this bond going forward and all the information?
Well, there's no bond.
Do you know, Mr. Anderson, do you know when you'll hear back? I guess that's the
It
question.
will be a number of months, and there will be a full board meeting with the State Building Authority in order to vote whether or not we will be invited to enter into the program.
And we'll get that communication.
Yeah, oh, absolutely.
Just a process that we're well informed of what's going on, that's all.
Okay. Councilor McGivern.
Along the lines of what Councilor Graney is suggesting, I will vote to reconsider, withdraw my motion, refer to finance, but ask that a copy of these orders go to finance for reference in the future.
Second.
So a motion is to take up 9, 10, 11, 12, and 13 as a package and vote on them. You need a voice vote, or do you need a roll call?
Roll call.
Okay, so the motion would be receive, adopt, and then send a copy to finance. Clerk will call the roll. If you vote yes, you're voting for it. We start with Councilor Leahy, who was picked first.
Yes.
Leahy.
Yes.
LeBron Martinez. Lisi.
Yes.
McGee.
Yes.
McGivern.
Yes.
Murphy.
Yes.
Sullivan.
Yes.
Tallman.
Yes.
Yes.
Anderson Burgos.
Yes.
Bartley.
Yes.
Graney.
Yes.
Hernandez.
Yes.
Unanimous vote.
With your vote, you're approved 9 through 13 in order to get into the line.
Thank you, councilors.
Motion to suspend the necessary rules and take up items number 37 and 38 out of order.
Motion to take up 37 and 38 out of order. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? $37 is from Councilor McGivern. Due to the overall increase in public school state education receipts, the charter school assessment of $12,522,870 to $12,182,540, page 28, which then is to the charter spending tuition decrease. 38 is also with regards to the charter school spending, $634,166 from charter school spending tuition, school choice spending tuition to personal services. Motion would be to receive, adopt. Under discussion, Councilor McGivern.
I have nothing to say, Mr. President.
Oh, okay.
So we have the comptroller for the schools here, and I thought that.
Oh, I didn't know if this was discussed or something. I apologize. So would this be going to finance? I apologize.
Well, I thought we could just take it up and have a brief.
If it's going to the committee, there's no reason to have a brief discussion right now.
On the committee.
We have 7 hours of finance committee meetings in the past 2
Exactly.
weeks, and we got 4 hours ahead of us here.
So this would be going to committee, but seeing how it's the first time. So motion is to send 37 and 38 to finance.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Back to 14, which is the Fire Commission minutes for December 18th.
Be received.
Motion is to receive. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? 15, a list of nonprofits requested by Councilor
Motion to
Graney.
receive.
Second.
Did you receive this, Councilor?
You want that
Yeah,
sent to
just a quick comment on it.
public
What?
service?
Councilor Graney?
Just a quick comment, there's 78 pages of nonprofits, so it's going to take me a while to go through them all.
So do you want this to send to committee for addressing?
Sure, why not?
What
Yes.
committee?
I'm not sure.
Want to take it up in public service?
Public service is probably the right
Right,
one.
so motion is to send 15 to public service.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? 16 is from the Thomas J. O'Connor Animal Control. It's their budget.
Receive and
Be
refer to
received
finance.
for the finance. All those in favor?
Aye.
All opposed?
18 has been disposed of.
18 is already off. President's report, make it quick, so we have a long agenda. Gladys, Councilor Bar Martinez could not make it here tonight. She did send an email to me. With that, we did get a request from the parade committee, which is the first time I've ever seen this, so maybe Kevin Jordan used to do this, but it's asking us to acknowledge and return to them that we will follow the rules of the parade.
Ryan fills that out.
All right, so
It's just you can't throw things out.
drinks.
Specific rules.
Yep, so I can get a copy to everyone. There's rules that we have to abide by, but I guess I'll be signing that on your behalf to say that we will abide by the rules and not cause trouble at the parade.
God.
So everyone, we'll send you a copy. So, Councilor McGivern?
Everybody look
Mr.
at
President, that's just it's a formal code of conduct for marching groups that they understand, and I don't think they're questioning the city council's code of conduct, that they understand people that come in, that this is a family parade, and people who are watching are with their families. And as you march down the street, there are certain things that are not appropriate that should be done during the course of the parade. And it's just, that's just a standard form to let everybody know.
Counselor, I thought they were singling you out. I felt bad. That's why I was trying to cover for you.
Well,
Well, just let you know we got that letter. It's the first time I've seen it. But with that, we'll say we're in compliance. Anything that we're missing for events coming up or dates? Anyone? No? All right, we'll move right on to reports of committee, ordinance committee, 19A or?
Yeah, 19A, B, and C is a package, please.
B and C as a package. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed, so. Committee on ordinance that a handicap sign be placed at 533 South Summer Street, and B is that a handicap sign be placed at 300 Chestnut Street.
And C.
See?
And you want C. And C is that a handicap sign be placed at 24 Hamden Street. So it's A, B, and C as a package. All those in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? And their handicap signs, Counselor Lisi.
Yeah, motion to pass the first reading. These are amendments to the traffic ordinance. They have been vetted by the Commission on Disabilities, and while there was some confusion because of the way that some of the applications were filled out, Counselor Murphy took it upon himself to work with the applicant and also with the Commission on Disabilities to get everything in order, and we had the engineer and the legal department work on drafting the measurements into legal form.
All right, so motion is to pass the first reading. Under discussion, Counselor Murphy.
Yeah, I just want to publicly thank Commissioner Donnie Welch. He both gave me a phone message on one that needed to be approved that had been declined, but then they found additional evidence, and then a second one where the person had to come in, and the city clerk's office was very good at handling it. I think on last Wednesday morning, she came in and refiled some paperwork. Donnie then went back and looked at all the process again, and he approved it. So, I mean, I think he went above and beyond in terms of making sure these got done, so I appreciate that.
Anyone further? This motion is passed the first reading. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed?
Motion to pass the second reading.
Motion is passed the second reading. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed?
Motion that the passage be ordained.
Motion is that the passage be ordained. The clerk will call a roll. If you vote yes, you're voting for A, B, and C.
Leahy,
Yes.
Lisi,
Yes.
McGee,
Yes?
McGivern.
yes.
Murphy.
Yes.
Sullivan.
Yes.
Tallman.
Yes.
Bacon.
Yes.
Anderson Burgos.
Yes.
Bartley.
Yes.
Graney.
Yes.
Hernandez.
Yes.
Unanimous vote.
With your vote, you approved all of them.
Motion to suspend the necessary rules and take up items number 19E and F as a package.
So E and F?
Yep.
Taking up E and F as a package.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? E, Committee on Ordinance was referred in order that the city charge a sales tax or a license fee to Uber Lyft that's been complied with. 19F, the Committee on Ordinance was referred in order that the City Council review and consider amending the zoning ordinance related to corner lots, including Section 2.0 definition, recommended to be complied with.
Motion to receive the committee report and adopt.
Motion is receive and adopt as complied with. Our discussion? or-
Thank you. So we have quite a number of items that you'll see this evening coming out of ordinance. It's really just some housekeeping. In the case of these two orders, what we learned was for the Uber and Lyft rideshare companies, the state already assesses a tax. And then a portion of that tax is returned to the municipality, so we already are taxing and receiving fees from these companies. And in item number 19F that was filed by Councilor Sullivan regarding corner lots and accessory structures, we had already dealt with that. It was just a duplicate of some sort in the jacket, so we got rid of it.
So motion is that both are complied with. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed?
We're going to go to 19D.
19D. Being an ordinance was referred that the City of Holyoke amend zoning ordinance section 4.3, capital A8, to require special permits prior to the granting of the use of all residential districts in the City of Holyoke and no longer allowing the use of right. Recommend that be adopted.
This is actually give leave to withdraw, so we need to amend the committee report. Councilor Bartley refiled this order recently at our last meeting, and so we have that one in the jacket, and he gave us permission to get rid of this one as a duplicate.
All right, so 19D is supposed to read give leave to withdraw.
Motion to amend.
So we're amending that. All those in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? So this is just clearing the jacket. We're going to take it up again. So with regards to 19D, giving leave to withdraw, all those in favor?
Aye.
All opposed?
And then we could take up 19H all the way through 19Q. They're all being given leave to withdraw, and I'll give a brief summary of them all as we go through, but it'll be very brief.
What about G?
What about G?
Oh, I'm sorry, 19G. 19G.
All the way, G
all the way through Q.
To Q. G. So motion to suspend rules, take up G to 19Q. All those in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? G is committee on ordinance, keeping live poultry for the purpose of fresh eggs, Board of Health, leave to withdraw. H is a federal per diem rate as the maximum allowed reimbursement for daily meal expenses, leave to withdraw. I is ordinance requiring the mayor to provide any financial burden to the city when entering and allowing private company contracts for use of city buildings, leave to withdraw. J is order that the position of mayor aide chief of staff be added to the PR salary schedule PR 24, leave to withdraw. K is that the ordinance refer and order that all retirement board positions be established as a special municipal employee, leave to withdraw. L is ordinance refer that the city of Holyoke consider creating a position for help entertainment navigate various permitting licensing requirements, new business in the city, LTW, leave to withdraw. Ordinance was referred in order that the Holyoke Water Department commissioners and representatives come before the committee to payment of lieu of tax. This one is
It should be leave to withdraw.
leave to withdraw. N, committee on ordinance was referred in order that through ordinance a criminal analyst position be established at the Holyoke Police Department, leave to withdraw.
Yep.
And then O is that the order allow a development and redevelopment for properties in the area aligned with the following. Give that leave to withdraw.
Yep.
Ordinance that whom was referred a new position be established for merit aide of chief of staff, leave to withdraw. And Q, ordinance was referred that the city council consider adopting a stormwater fee consistent with the combined base fee of all city taxpayers, et cetera, leave to withdraw.
Yes, thank you so much. So, motion to receive the committee report to give leave to withdraw and adopt.
Motion is to take G through Q as a package to leave to withdraw. Under discussion, Councilor Lisi.
Thanks. So item number 19G is about keeping live poultry in the city. It was filed by Councilor Roman, so we're just going to give it leave to withdraw for now. Several members of the ordinance committee felt it was something that they wanted to pursue, but they want to talk to the Board of Health director first before filing anything, so that may come again down the road. 19H is about creating a reimbursement rate that matches the federal per diem rate for the destination city, and the members present felt that, we probably aren't in a financial position to be able to compensate people based on the destination city, and that we would just use what's in the ordinances as it is at this point in time. For the 19I, we felt that this was already addressed through some of the work we did, distinguishing license and rents, and the way that the City Hall building is being rented, and we have control over those licenses and rents as a body now. 19J is to create a, so it was to create the chief of staff position and create a salary schedule for it, so we're not doing that at this moment in time. 19K is about the retirement board positions being established as special municipal employees. That also has been taken care of since it was filed. 19L is about an ombuds position. And again, a lot of council members that were present for the meeting that night felt that that was a merited and desirable position or set of responsibilities that we could give somebody in City Hall, but to create a new position, it may not make sense at this time. And so we'll be talking with various departments to see if somebody can take on those responsibilities. And so it will be refiled in another fashion, perhaps slimming down the scope of work. 19M is about payment in lieu of taxes from the water department, and I think that Councilor Sullivan has filed something to revisit payment in lieu of taxes from multiple departments, as well as get a better sense of how they're being accounted for and tracked within City Hall. So we're giving this one leave to withdraw, and we may file something that is bringing everybody, all these quasi-municipal agencies in the city that benefit from city services, and sending a message to the mayor that we want those pilots renegotiated. 19N is a criminal analyst position. This was filed by Councilor Roman. Again, another well-intended and meritorious position, but due to the fiscal constraints of the city, we felt that it's not the right time to move forward on this specific position. Perhaps there's trainings that some individual within the police department would be able to take and develop their skill set in some way that meets some of the work that was envisioned for this criminal analyst position. But for now, we're not going to fund it. 19O, so the committee is open to looking at these zone changes. It's a request that was made by the planning department to clean up some areas on Maple Street, but the way that it's filed is very obscure. Like, the public and probably most city councilors can't identify these properties where they are, and so we asked the planning department to refile this with the actual addresses, so we could have an easier time having a discussion about these parcels. 19P is also, it's about the chief of staff position, which we are not moving forward on. 19Q is about a stormwater fee, and the city engineer said that it's probably appropriate to give leave to withdraw at this moment in time, but they are doing a permeable surface study in the city, and so it may be something that we revisit in the future. Thanks to everybody on the Ordinance Committee and for the participation that Councilors Bartley and McGivern gave by their attendance that evening. We slogged through quite a number of items, and there's only 50 items left in the Ordinance Committee jacket. Thank you.
Any further discussion? No, motion is that they have all been complied with. All those in favor?
Given leave to withdraw.
Oh, I leave to withdraw, sorry. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those
Aye.
opposed? On to finance. 20A.
Make a motion to adopt 20A through 20Z. No discussion.
Second.
Mr. President, I'd like to make a motion to proceed out of order. I'd like to say something first, but
All right, so where do you want to go to
if we could
first?
take up on the agenda we're using, and I say this because I'm using the agenda that's still on the website, and this is no reflection other than the fact that finance met last night. It's a little confusing. But if we could take up the two computer, Wally computer, and the insurance items, which are J. 20I and 20J first.
Okay.
We have a guest in the audience who was with us last night for almost the duration of our meeting.
I'll second that.
So 20I and 20J.
It'd be separate votes and separate discussion, but just to go out of order to take
Motion
them
is
up.
to go out of order to 20I and 20J. All those in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? 20I is finance is referred that there hereby be appropriated transfer of $85,550 from stabilization to computer consultant. J is hereby requested $12,535 from stabilization to cybersecurity insurance. I want to take up 20I first.
That'd be fine, Mr. President. Make a
So,
motion to receive, pass the first
Motion is
reading.
receive, adopt, pass the first reading. In our discussion, Councilor McGivern.
Thank you, Mr. President. The finance met last night for 4 hours and 45 minutes. The following Monday, we met for 3 hours and 15 minutes. Last night, we were joined by Councilor Murphy and Councilor Bacon. Councilor Murphy was at last Monday's meeting, along with Councilor Lisi for part of the meeting. We deliberated every item, and there are some 27 items coming out of these two meetings, all of which have some type of time sensitivity to them. We deliberated them for what they were needed and came up with answers to all the questions that were asked. Most of our votes are 5-0. I thank people who were not at these meetings for trusting the 5-0 vote that took place by the Finance Committee in our recommendation, and see no need to have, other than answer some questions, repeat of discussion that took place. There are some votes that were split decisions that I think deserve some more discussion, and one of them is what we're about, the second order we're about to take up now. But to the members who were able to make it, we are grateful for you, and to the members of the Finance Committee, I am personally grateful to you for these long agendas, because unlike ordinance, we still have double the amount of orders that have come into this committee in the last month and a half due to the late delay in setting the tax rate, the late delay in balancing the budget. And I also apologize, and this is not the clerk's fault, because I don't like to meet the night before a meeting, but the agenda I'm working on is still on the website, so I've got letters and numbers and things. If I look like I don't know what I'm talking about, you all know I don't know what I'm talking about. So if we can go on to this item is a transfer that would take care of Wally Computer. Just a quick reminder, Wally Computer took over for the Gas and Electric for our IT services. Wally Computer is, I believe, one of the largest IT services within Massachusetts, if not within New England, and they offer a tremendous amount of services. They were actually recommended by the Holyoke Gas and Electric, who knew that the city needed more than what the Gas and Electric could offer, although their tenure was a good one. And I think the Gas and Electric referred and sent over to the mayor's office the request that Wally Computer would be considered. We also know that Wally Computer is not new to the city of Holyoke. They've been working within the police department and fire department for some time now, and we've heard both from police and fire that there's an excellent reputation with them, and they're very happy that they've taken over all of the services of IT. With that in mind, we were given a handout that highlights, we'll make sure everybody has a copy of it, the services that they provide. It's 5 times as much as what the Gas and Electric did for the city. What we're looking for here is a transfer. The transfer would get the amount of money through the fiscal year to pay for the services, both the management fee and pay for the software license and things that are necessary for IT services. The amount to transfer is $85,550. It's coming from the stabilization fund, which is most of what we're talking about this evening is coming from stabilization, but it's within that $750,000 that the DOR told us if we were to use that additional revenue this year, we had to put it into the stabilization fund itself and to use it, item by item. Therefore, Mr. President, just a reminder, it takes a 2/3 vote final vote, no matter what, to transfer this money. With us last night and with us this evening is Kevin Russell, who did a tremendous job last night of both outlining the services and about answering our questions, and there were quite a lot of questions to Mr. Russell. He went through it with a fine-tooth comb and convinced us and convinced myself that the services are being adequately provided and the questions have been answered. We believe that the $85,500 on a 5-0 vote would be well spent, and we ask that the full City Council endorse that this evening.
Any further discussion? Councilor Bartley.
Yeah, first of all, I got to pay a compliment to Joe, because it's, being there at that meeting, 4 hours and 45 minutes is one thing, but running the meeting is a whole different deal. So thank you, Joe, for your work on that in the last couple of meetings. Right, I would say on this one, and it was an excellent summary. So what we did last June 27th, we cut that line by $103,000. And now, and we did that, whatever the vote was, I had it last night, but we're not going to repeat the meeting last night. It doesn't matter. We did that pretty much for the same reason that we cut the $100,000 from HG&E, because we want to have a discussion. And we weren't getting a discussion. We were just getting this. And this is, if you recall, we had the same thing, Mr. President, with TJL, and I think that's borne fruit. So, and I thank you for your leadership on that as well, because when you got behind it, I think that was a tail of the tape. So we had a good discussion on this, and not only it's not the 103 that's coming back, it's the 550. But Mike and Mr. Russell really gave a very good explanation as to why that is. So we still have a cut, about 18,000, but it's still a reasonable expense. The only question that I raised that I didn't hear the chair summarize, because again it was just a long 4 hours and 45 minutes. It's just a lot. I raised the question last night as to whether this service is subject to Chapter 30B. Now, I didn't see it. Chapter 30B's got at least 40 exceptions in Section 130B. Your lawyers, your accountants, your other ones. I haven't reviewed it, but I need to know whether or not this was supposed to be bid. If it was supposed to be bid, what do we do now? If it wasn't supposed to be bid, then I'm ready to move this forward.
So the motion would be to suspend the rules to allow legal to answer. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? To legal?
So what's the question specifically you're asking?
Did this go out to bid? Was it required to go out to bid? Is it in compliance?
I mean, I wasn't at the finance meeting. I'm going to defer to Mr. Bloomberg over here, because I think he has better information than I have on that.
Yeah, I have
Well, hold on.
President, if I could just
Councilor McGivern.
Councilor Bartley's question is a good question, and because there is perhaps a gray area, but one of those exceptions that we did note, and we all know last night, of 30B is professional services. Now, two things. One is this in my mind, is a professional service that's being provided to the city. The mayor has sole authority to decide what professional services can be contracted out, so be it. That doesn't mean it can't go out to bid. It can't be a request for proposals, but it's a question of whether it has to and did it. The second part is, I apologize, because Mike Bloomberg from the mayor's office was here representing the mayor for almost the entire meeting last night on a number of different items. And he answered some questions that we did have of it. But I suggest that we do hear from Mr. Bloomberg in the mayor's office as to what, if it was bid, and if what the interpretation is of 30B. I think it's a fair question. At the same time, whether we pass this transfer or don't pass this transfer, Wally Computer is here. So this isn't going to stop, or change anything that's ongoing. We would have to look into what, if it was supposed to go out to bid, we would have to look into what the corrective action would be as a city. But the transfer itself would still be for the payment of services that are ongoing.
All right, so motion is suspend the rules to allow the chief of staff to speak.
Second.
Second.
All's in favor? All
Aye.
opposed? To the mic, please.
Just correct you, it's legislative aid, according to the book. We withdrew that motion. So I did reach out to Lori Belanger, and I'm hoping to get this in official documentation to share with all of you. But the quick answer was that Wally Computing Services is in the statewide contracts database, which we're allowed to purchase out of. It allows municipalities to purchase without going out to bid, because the state aggregates special pricing across the board. So through the operational services division of the state, that's how we were able to contract with Wally Computing without violating 30B. And I will be happy to get you that on letterhead or official documentation as needed.
Councilor Bartley.
Yeah, well, as a lawyer, I'm not going to rely on a representation by a non-lawyer, especially when it's not in writing. However, what I would say is that I would be happy to make this vote if we can't do it under our rules with contingent upon now there is a statewide vendor list, but with all due respect to my friends, this chapter shall apply to every contract for the procurement of supplies, services, or real property. That's super clear. Every contract. I mean, you can't get any clearer. I don't think you can any clearer than that. Now, they list a myriad of exceptions on here. I don't see the statewide list under here. Now, I will happily pass this tonight with, if we can, contingent, or, Mr. President, I would say we could, I mean, I'm understanding from last night's meeting that we have until the end of the month, hypothetically, to pay the next bill. Hypothetically, we could table this to the February 18th meeting. At that time, we could have something to us in writing well beforehand that would not affect the city's position. It would not affect the vendor. So I leave that out to the body. I mean, I'll go either way on this one. If we can get something in writing, if either we table it, I'm not making that motion to be sure, or we pass this contingent upon a writing that not only the procurement director but the law department vets. So either way is good. Or just pass it the way it is.
Councilor Murphy.
Yeah, I would go along with Councilor Bartley's recommendation, but as far as mathematically, the 85,000 really covers 3 months, so this only needs to be passed sometime in March. So we have time to make sure, that what we are doing is in fact within the state statute, and I'm pretty confident it is, but obviously there's some question on that. And we were told last night it's $29,000 a month, so if we're only transferring 85,000, my math skills tells me that's 3 months. So if there's someone with higher math skills and an adding machine that can show me differently, please let me know.
Anyone further? So is there a motion?
Well, I'll make a motion to table.
Motion would be to table.
Second.
It was seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed?
No.
Okay.
I make a motion that we approve it with the contingency that it meets the 30B requirements.
Whatever.
I'll second that.
So motion to
pass
with the contingent.
Pass.
If you pass it, it's passed. If
Right.
Can I?
So, Councilor Leahy.
Very quickly, I do understand exactly what Councilor Bartley is saying about getting the opinion from the microphone. However, having heard that and also hearing from the gentleman himself who does out of the 351 cities and towns in Mass, how many do you do? Almost all of them. He stated last night that I don't want to put words in your mouth, but didn't you say something similar to the fact that it does merit?
Is it, Jim, is your mic working or?
No,
that,
the guy who's.
Oh, yeah. Well, please come to the
Can't hear me.
You're talking to
I thought it wasn't working though, yeah.
If you don't mind, it's.
No, so motion is.
I thought we want to rehash the 4 hour and
Paul
45
has
minutes.
questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
All opposed?
But my question to you, sir, is, understanding professional services, insurance people and whatnot, you say you're in most all of the 351 cities and towns. So, so do you guys merit the fact that you guys explain the 30B to us?
I believe the question is yes. Wally Computer is on the state contract to supply services to all state agencies and municipalities. And why, again, I'm not a legal representation. I do believe it is correct that allows state agencies and municipalities to not have to put out for requests for bids to get services from agencies like Wally that are on those bids.
Okay, and I think time is of the essence, especially with computers. I did receive a message, and I told this to you, fine gentleman, yesterday. Also, I sent Mayor Morris a text as well. I got a random message saying, I forget exactly what it said, but hurry, call me. And it was not from his email address. I looked, it was from a fake one, but it was sent to me and my email address. And, I just, if I had clicked on it, if I replied, God knows what would happen. And we've had some issues in the past. So I think cybersecurity and making sure everything is squared away is essential. Thank you.
Mr. President?
Councilor Sullivan, and then I'll get over here.
Yeah, just speaking from a common sense point of view, if we've made payments in July, August, September, October, November, December, and January, to continue making the payments, we're not any more or any less in violation. We should, to Councilor Bartley's point, get an answer. But if it's already been done wrong, it's been done wrong. We ought to get the vendor paid. It's not their fault. We have a deeper problem than just the next payment.
Councilor Bacon.
If I may, I would just like to amend my motion to say to approve the transfer, but to request a review and a letter back to the city council from legal.
Yeah, that's.
Second.
She has the answer to this. Legal, it's under suspension, so you can go.
So search through the state website, you pull it up on the Operational Services Division under mass.gov. Statewide contracts are eligible to be used by municipalities, and the benefit to them is by saving time. By using the Operational Services Division statewide contracts, there's no need to invest valuable time developing solicitations, issuing bids, evaluating responses, and executing contracts.
There you go.
They've negotiated the pricing, selected the appropriate vendors, and outlined services for you, basically.
On the
Right.
question?
Asked and
Councilor
answered.
Graney.
On the question? Move the question, please.
So no further discussion. So we're back to that the motion is that we receive, adopt, and have a communication. Do you still want the communication, Councilor Bacon, or are you all set now?
I'm all set.
Okay, so motion is to pass the first reading. All those in favor?
Aye.
All opposed?
Motion to pass the second reading.
Motion is to pass the second reading. Clerk will call the roll. If you vote yes, you're voting for 20I, which is the $85,550.
Leahy? Yes. Lisi?
Yes.
McGee?
Yes.
McGivern?
Yes.
Murphy?
Yes.
Sullivan?
Yes.
Tallman?
Yes.
Bacon?
Yes.
Anderson Burgos?
Yes.
Bartley?
Yes.
Graney?
Yes.
Hernandez?
Yes.
Unanimous vote.
With your vote, you approve the transfer. 20J. Motion is
Motion
received,
to pass
adopt,
first
pass the first reading. This is the
Second.
$12,535 under discussion. Councilor McGivern.
Thank you. We took this up at the same time. It's a separate vote and a little bit different. This is one of our split decisions. The vote was 3-2 coming out of committee in favor of adoption. You can break it down real simple. Mr. Russell did recommend that, cities start to get some type of insurance coverage for cyber issues, and I think we all know what's going on in the world of security and the internet and in the world of security and hacking and so forth. The questions that came up last night were good questions. Where the quote came from the agent which the mayor uses, which is Dowd Insurance. We learned through the deputy mayor, the legislative, sorry, Mike, I had to say that. The legislative aid that the agent for the city, Dowd Insurance, did get 3 quotes for this. And they came up with the best quote for the city of $12,535. This would give us some coverage for any hacking, any type of cybersecurity breaches. And we think for the amount of dollars
whatever type of coverage we get out of it would be money well spent. So the committee, 3-2, recommends in favor of passing the transfer.
Any further discussion? Counselor Bartley?
Yeah, I was one of the two. That was a good summary. I'll just point out that, that we're now up to 3 different quotes on this, so that's kind of where we were. So we have this one in front of us, which, when the mayor was here December 17th, he said this is a premium for half the year, and that the full premium would be double the amount. Last night, we had Mike here, and Mike said, nope, this is for the whole calendar year. And then we talked about how, well, it doesn't work that way in municipal government. We work on a fiscal year. And then Mike came back with a third quote, which is, might be $5,077, and it might be something south of the $12,535. Regardless of the quote, I voted against it. I voted against it because this is a new expense in the middle of an incredibly tight deficit fiscal year. I think it's the wrong time. I think it's the right idea, but it's certainly the wrong, in my opinion, it's the wrong time. So worst case scenario, I feel like we need to get the exact number, what it is. I mean, I know this is before us, Mr. President, but according to Mike, that is not exact. He wasn't sure what this covers. Does it go through the fiscal year, or does it cover a calendar year? Well, we don't pass financial orders on a calendar year. We do it on the fiscal year. So this is not the proper order before us, and because it's not the right number. And so that, worst case, we need to get the right number, the right amount through June 30th. But best case, in my opinion, why I vote against it, it's just the wrong time of year and a really bad budget year. So that's why I voted no.
Anyone further? Motion is to pass the first reading. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed?
No.
Motion is
Motion to pass the second reading.
pass the second reading. Clerk will call the roll. If you vote yes, you're voting for 20J.
Leahy,
Yay, I mean, yes.
Lisi,
Yes.
McGee,
No.
McGivern,
Yes.
Murphy,
No.
Sullivan,
No.
Tallman,
Yes.
Bacon,
No.
Anderson Burgos,
Yes.
Bartley,
No.
Graney, Hernandez.
Yes.
6 yeas, 6 nays.
Vote does not pass. Back to.
President, if I can make a motion to take up some orders for the police supervisor's contract.
Second.
Suspend the rules. What we would be doing is, coming out of committee are several items that we were itemized that would be the appropriations necessary for this fiscal year to honor the contract. And voting upon the appropriations would solidify the contract. Voting against any appropriations would make the contract null and void. However, when it came in like this, I spoke with the auditor and the mayor, and these things, this vote should be one vote, not several votes. So on the agenda, we're working with 20S, 20T, 20U, 20V, 20W, 20X, 20Y, 20Z, 20ZA, and 20ZB. If you follow me.
Yep, I got you. Motion to
And-
suspend the rules to take up 20S to 20, call it
Backslash.
ZB, or the end of Finance Committee. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The second to
Well,
take
we
those
will be asking that, the actual vote on each of these would be to deny, but the replacement order is later on the agenda, item number 36, which is a request for transfer from the same amount into the same line items, but it's one vote, not 9 votes. So for purpose of the discussion and a final vote, if we could also take up item 36.
Second.
Second.
Just gather them up. All right, so.
And Mr. President, while you're doing that, can I just say that, since I do have a relative in the police department, I can vote on the entire budget because it's not affecting one person individually?
Correct. So S is $9,876 from stabilization to captain. This is all for the contract, but as Councilor McGivern pointed out, it was broken up. 20T is $36,845 from stabilization to sergeants. 20U is $22,699 from stabilization to lieutenants. 20V is $19,403 from stabilization to Quinville education. 20W is $5,500 from stabilization to education plan. 20X is $1,835 from stabilization to longevity. 20Y is $7,107 from stabilization to overtime. 20Z is $450 from stabilization to court appearances.
Gangster.
20Z, that's a duplicate, so call it ZA.
Thank you.
$2,809 from stabilization to in-service training. Make sure I got them all. And I think that is it. Did I miss one? No, I think I got them all.
Yeah,
So those are all recommended to be denied. You want to take those up first, Councilor McGivern?
If we could take those up, and the recommendation is to deny, to allow us to take our final vote on item 30, the item 36 transfer.
Okay, so we're taking up S to that Z, B if you want to call it, or A. The ones that I read out, the motion is that they are to be denied for the reasons already stated. Any further discussion on it? All right, so motion is passed first reading to deny. All those in favor?
Aye.
All opposed?
Motion to pass.
Motion is passed.
Second reading to deny.
Second.
Pass the second reading to deny. If you vote yes, you're voting to deny. Everyone, it's a new one, it's a trick, but that's the vote.
Leahy?
Yes.
Lisi?
Yes.
McGee?
Yes.
McGivern?
Yes.
Murphy?
Yes.
Sullivan?
Yes.
Tallman?
Yes.
Bacon?
Yes.
Anderson Burgos?
Yes.
Bartley?
Yes.
Greenie?
Yes.
Hernandez?
Yes.
Unanimous vote.
With your vote, you've denied those. Now move out of order 236. All those in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? This is from stabilization, $106,524, to captains, lieutenants, sergeants, in-service training, Quinville education, education plan, longevity, overtime, court appearances. The ones that we just denied, they're putting it all into one package. So motion would be receive, adopt, pass the first reading. Under discussion, Councilor McGivern.
Thank you, Mr. President. Just a quick reminder, back last November, November 19th, we received a memorandum of understanding for the, what the city had negotiated with the Superior Officers Collective Bargaining Union itself. The Finance Committee did meet on this agreement on December 12th. We had a discussion with the attorney from the law department, not Crystal, but Attorney Gina. And Gina is here with us this evening. And most of our questions were answered, and a few questions weren't answered. We did receive, just to remind everyone, which I'm going to refer to, a revised copy of this agreement in December 17th on the full City Council, and referred that to the Finance Committee. We also noted at that time that that was the same time that we were learning of a problem with free cash and a problem, and then the good news about the additional monies that the DOR were going to let us use, which is now what we call the $750,000 agreed upon number in the stabilization account. We cannot act on a contract until we have the revenue necessary, the appropriation necessary in front of us. That appropriation is now in front of us. The discussion was based on the same number with the broken down items we just denied, and now we're acting on the $106,524 going into each of those line items that we just denied. Quick breakdown. Again, everybody has got copies of this. We did discuss this last night. Most of the salary increases, and Gina, please correct me if I say anything out of order or wrong, but it includes a retroactive this year is what we're voting on for a 1% increase. There are some other things to take into consideration that do have financial impacts for this year, and there are some financial impacts, although we're not voting on the money this year, for future years. The future year contracts are an additional 2% on July 1st, 2020, an additional 2% on July 1st, 2021. One of the items that was negotiated that we had questions on, which we talked about last night, two of the items actually, is a 0.5% increase for long gun distribution accountability and a one-time 0.5% increase for the carrying of Narcan and the distribution of the responsibility of why police officers carry Narcan itself. There's in the contract, on item number 5, is what is known as the longevity and the formula that is used to determine longevity pay. There is an increase in breakfast, lunch, and supper reimbursements, not on a daily basis, but if a police officer is sent away on training, sent away to a conference, or out of town on a legitimate city business, this is the formula that the city has agreed to reimburse their meals. There's some changes that have nothing that we're voting on this evening, but does have impacts, and there's some changes in the vacation carryover, which just, if I'm correct, last night we were told it reflects the language that is in the patrol officers' agreement itself also, that I believe we voted on sometime last year. I think that highlights most of the contract. If there are any questions, I'm sure myself or any member of the committee can answer it. And of course, our attorney from the law department is here to answer any questions. The committee voted 5-0 to pass the appropriation this evening, which again, once that appropriation is passed, the contract for through July 1st, 2020 would be solidified.
Councilor Murphy.
Yeah, I'm going to be voting for the transfer here, but I just want to publicly thank the officers for stepping up and now being an Narcan distribution and an AED, and I would hope that we work to do that for all of our police officers if possible. Obviously, they come to incidents which are life-threatening, and the more that they can do, as the superior officers are doing here, the safer we'll be, and I just want to thank them publicly for accepting that responsibility.
Councilor Leahy.
Yeah, thank you. It was August 14th. I'm sorry, it was August of 2014. I filed an order to have the public service people in the city of Holyoke carrying Narcan. At the time, I kind of went back and forth with Chief Nayswanger, but he didn't take it off the table. So I'm glad it's finally coming to fruition. If one person gets saved, it means I'm sure a lot more than one person, but it's a very important thing for our first responders to carry. Thank you.
Councilor Bartley.
Yep. I know I'm sounding like a broken record, but Joe did a great job last night, so I want to thank Joe again. It's probably, I was probably the human rain delay last night for probably an hour with my various questions, but I had to ask him because I didn't really understand some of these issues, and I received a pretty fair explanation from all three of the officers who attended, but especially Sergeant Hart and Lieutenant Canoyer, who were here. So I'm going to vote for this. It is a 3% out of the gate at this point, then it's 2% and 2%. They also explained the relationship between the two different unions with the superior officers and with the patrolmen, and how benefits kind of carry over to when patrolmen move up to the rank. That helped me. The breakdown as well for how the calculations were derived, to me were very helpful. I mean, it's all on the table right now. So while it was, it's a costly deal, but then again, I think when we hear from constituents, it's public safety, great schools, and quality of life. I mean, those are just the top three that I generally hear when I was walking around and when I continue to walk around the city. So, I mean, you get the services you pay for, Mr. President. I think in this case, it is a pretty tough expense, but the contract was due. I mean, this is when it comes up. It's going to run I don't have it in front of me, Joe. Is it June 30th, 2022?
Gina, is that correct? I know that the last increase is July 1st of 2021.
It'll be due for renewal July 1st, 2022.
So,
thank you.
So just what I said. So it goes June 30th, 2022. So I did ask them last night, Mr. President, when do we sort of take these up? And it was conveyed to me that it was taken up in May. I just want to say it out loud to the law department and to the the executive branch, that it would be my hope that we could maybe take these up maybe 6 months prior to the expiration of the contract. So that would be approximately January of 2022. So we don't have to have this carryover again and again and again. So we can sort of get ahead of the game. But other than that, Mr. President, I think I was pretty well satisfied. My questions were answered.
Councilor Green?
Yes, Mr. President, it's collectively bargained, it's money well spent, let's move the question.
Councilor Tallman?
Very informative night, and thank the office for coming down to answer the questions, especially the several questions that Councilor Bartley asked. I think we all learned a little bit of something, the duties they have and breaking down the cost of the contract. But I just wanted to thank the men and women of the police department for the job they do day in and day out to keeping us safe in our community and really stepping up. It's a well-deserved contract, and congratulations and keeping us safe, and I really appreciate it.
So the motion is to pass the first reading on 36. All those in favor?
Aye. Aye.
All those opposed?
Motion to pass the second reading.
Motion is passed the second reading. Clerk will call the roll. If you vote yes, you're voting for from stabilization 106-524.
Leahy?
Yes.
Lisi?
Yes.
McGee?
Yes.
McGivern?
Yes.
Murphy?
Yes.
Sullivan?
Yes.
Tallman?
Yes.
Bacon?
Yes.
Anderson Burgos?
Yes.
Bartley?
Yes.
Greenie?
Yes.
Hernandez?
Yes.
Unanimous vote.
With your vote, you're approved. Item 36. Back to 20A. We're coming back. 20A, Committee on Finance was referred an order that's $65,000 from stabilization to legal claims.
Could you please read that?
That's
the order
wrong,
itself?
actually. No, it's $25,000 from stabilization, but it says $65,000 legal claims.
That's correct. It should be, this should be 25,000 to 20 and 25,000 to legal claims.
So
there are
it's a
two
type.
orders. One's 25, and then if you move down to 20D, it's 65. Each of these orders were first taken up in executive session according to your order for two settlements that the city is proposing to make.
So 20A would be...
The agenda says 65, but the order should say 25 and 25.
There's an agenda item 15 that says 25 to 25. That was January 3rd. So I guess my question on this one, Counselor, is this one to deny because it's incorrect?
It is incorrect, yeah.
25,000 from stabilization, 65 legal claims. That's not correct.
If the auditor was here, I would defer to the auditor, but in committee, we had a 25 to 25 and a 65 to 65.
This one, it appears there's a typo on this one. There is an agenda item from January 3rd. It was taken up in Finance on 127. It says 25 to 25. That one is correct. So I'm not sure what the 20A is. It might just be a typo.
Typo, yeah, I think it is.
So I just want that clarified prior to acting on it. Yeah, there's...
Our auditor tells us it's a typo via iPhone. That's a typo.
All right, so 20A really should read 25,000 from stabilization to legal claims 25,000.
And in the written text, it also needs to be corrected. in parentheses there. Do you see it?
Yep.
Well, I'll second that motion to amend.
So motion is to correct. It's not so much that we can amend it.
Second.
Okay.
All those in favor,
All
just
right.
put it on the
Correct it
record
then.
so that way no one can
Okay.
say otherwise. All those in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Counselor McGivern.
Just to, for my help, safety, we're doing 25,001, correct?
Correct.
Yes.
Okay. Mr. President, we had an order on the 27th. The first order we acted on was to proceed into executive session for the purpose of talking about litigation facing the city and the potential of settlements. Settlements can be agreed upon by the mayor and the mayor only. Sometimes they go into arbitration. Most often and almost always they're negotiated by the law departments or outside counsel for the law department. On this particular case, it's an MCAD case known as Gates versus the City of Holyoke. The attorney, in the most recent attorney, and there's a little story to this, who took up this case on behalf of the city is Kathleen Morse, if I'm saying it correct. And she was present with us to answer our questions in executive session. There was a period of time where this case was she was representing the city, where the city took back a number of things to do in-house, and it went dormant for a while for a number of different reasons. And the MCAD at some point heard the claim. The person that we're talking about was a DPW employee who was terminated. He felt he could go back to work. The DPW said because he could drive, but he could not perform all the duties of the particular position that comes with driving, which would include the trash truck itself. He can only drive, then that would be unfair, and that he could not perform the entire job description for which that position requires. Make a long story short, though, the Kathleen Morse said that, back in 2010 when this all started, the city did have a leg to stand on, but over time, a number of things have happened, including the ruling by MCAD, including at one time the request was for $250,000, and a number of things came down to where a settlement is in the offering of a total of $50,000, but Attorney Morse said for the help and the sake of the tight budget with the city of Holyoke, that could be made in two payments, $25,000 this year, $25,000 next year. What's at stake? We did tell Attorney Morse that the vote next year is a whole separate vote and has nothing to do with this year's vote. But what also is at stake, and this is Attorney Morse telling us, is the potential of the consequences, or should I say the liability to the city, could be up to and well over $250,000 of retro salary benefits and so on to the employee if we were to take this suit any further and the employee were to win. Currently, to date, there's been $40,000 spent. To go to trial would be at least another $40,000, and then that potential liability of retroactive benefits and pay to the employee. With that in mind, the committee's recommendation is that we pass the $25,000, allowing the mayor to settle this with MCAD.
Councilor Sullivan.
Yep. It was a split vote. I apologize. Councilor Sullivan did vote against.
Yep. And I would just like everybody to understand why I voted against it, and urge my fellow councilors also to take a stand today. At some point, I totally understand, and I think everybody in the room does, the potential, if the employee here was to prevail. Yeah, there's an if. And what's at stake is $250,000 if they prevailed. This is one of the most frivolous, ridiculous suits I've heard of in my 4 years here. And at some point, we have to take a stand. If we don't take a stand, more and more and more and more of these will continue to come before us, because everyone out there knows the city will settle. So what's at risk really isn't $250,000, it's several $1 million over the next course of the year. that we've got to start showing that we don't just roll over for anybody that comes with a claim against the city and settle out of fear of losing.
Councilor Leahy.
Yes, I agree exactly with everything Councilor Sullivan said. However, I think we have to pick and choose, and I don't think this is the exact case to do so with because, from my understanding, this is going to be a long trial, and a lot of people would have to be interviewed and whatnot. $25,000 this year, $25,000 next year, as Joe said, that it could be a whole different, could be other counselors on this and might vote against it. However, I think we should just get this away from us, move on. Thank you.
Councilor Bartley.
Yeah, I got to thank Joe again. That was another great summary, Joe. That was another long meeting. I can't agree more with what Councilor Sullivan said. At the same time, I do agree with what Councilor Leahy just said. This case was a. I mean, how do you explain? You know, a law department from 2010 to 2015, Mr. President, you know, doing nothing. How does that happen? Well, there's no explanation for it. But it did happen. The attorney did say that if this had been litigated in a timely fashion, this was a winner for the city. So this case is a, I mean, the plaintiff in this case, all things being equal, doesn't deserve a nickel. Should be embarrassed to even bring it forward. At the same time, when you have a veteran counsel like we had before us in executive session with that much seasoning and advising us in no uncertain terms, this is the best you're going to get. I have to defer to that counsel in this instance. As much as it pains me to do it, I have to defer to that counsel, and that is the sole reason that I'm going to vote to approve this. Thank you.
Councilor Tallman.
Yeah, I heard the story. I think we sat in there for 45 minutes to an hour listening to the discussion of this case and how it sort of like lingered on and on. It sort of disappeared for a few years and came back. And I understand Councilor Sullivan's remarks on how, you know, we keep on doing this, it's going to come back. But I feel a lot of confidence now in the law department and the work that they've been doing within the department to try to keep our cases, you know, in-house and even with outside counsel, that this would be very costly if we went on with this, and the amount of money that would be spent just getting you know, people in deposed and the amount of the trial and then possibly losing the case. It could go to $250,000. I'm willing to risk paying the $25,000 this year and $25,000 next year to settle this claim and to get it behind us.
Councilor Green?
Yeah, just to ask legal or to ask the council, what is the most prudent thing for this council to do to watch out for the taxpayers' money? Because that's what we're here for.
You have a question for that? Or
Yeah, it's illegal. What's the course that we should take?
Motion is
We're spending the taxpayers' money here, so we should know what we're spending it on and what our
Suspend the rules
options
of
are.
the law department.
Suspend the rules, allow law department to speak.
You're asking my opinion if we should take the settlement? Absolutely.
Hold on.
Be able to hear it.
All right.
You hear it?
Is that, you're fine now? Okay.
It's 7 hours of meetings, and we asked those questions in the executive session, Mr.
Yeah.
President.
Yep. Question was asked, though. Any further discussion? No further discussion. The clerk will actually pass the first reading. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
I can make a motion to pass the second reading.
Motion be passed the second reading. Clerk will call roll. If you vote yes, you're voting for the transfer.
Leahy?
Yes.
Lisi?
Yes.
McGee?
Yes.
McGivern?
Yes.
Murphy?
Yes.
Sullivan?
No.
Tallman?
Yes.
Bacon?
Yes.
Anderson Burgos?
Yes.
Bartley?
Yes.
Graney?
Yes.
Hernandez?
Yes.
11 yeas, 1 nay.
With your vote, you're approved the 25,000. 20B, council hereby accept the provisions of the East Hampton Savings Bank donation to the Hoyok Park and Recreation. Recommend that be adopted. Under discussion, Councilor McGivern.
Thank you, Mr. President. East Hampton Savings Bank is one of our new corporate citizens and gave us a nice check to the Parks and Rec of $500. Little hiccup is that the Parks and Rec accepted the check and have already spent it. We let them know that, it should have been voted upon first, but in view of a new corporate citizen making a very generous donation for some events that are put on for the children of Holyoke, we will recommend that we do adopt and accept the gift this evening.
Motion would be
Second.
to receive, adopt, pass the first reading. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion would be
Motion to pass the second reading.
Pass the second reading. Clerk call roll. If you vote yes, you're voting for the 500.
Leahy?
Yes.
Lisi?
Yes.
McGee?
Yes.
McGivern?
Yes.
Murphy?
Yes.
Sullivan?
Yes.
Tolman?
Yes.
Bacon?
Yes.
Anderson Burgos?
Yes.
Bartley?
Yes.
Greeny?
Yes.
Hernandez.
Yes.
Unanimous vote.
With your vote, you approve the 500. 20C, Committee on Finance was referred in-state travel, $929.19 to vacation buyback. Recommend that be adopted. Under discussion.
Recommendation of the committee, Mr. President, is 5-0 to, it's a contractual obligation. The money is coming from an item that has a slight surplus in it, and it's going into an item that is necessary for vacation buyback for the building department.
Yep.
Okay, and it's an inspector that we lost who is, I believe, now working in East Hampton. Our building department, health department continues to train people for other communities with the salaries that we pay them. That was editorial, I apologize.
The motion would be to pass the first reading for the vacation buyback. All those in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion would be to pass the second reading.
Second.
Clerk will call roll. If you vote yes, you're voting for the transfer.
Leahy?
Yes.
Lisi?
Yes.
McGee?
Yes.
McGivern?
Yes.
Murphy?
Yes.
Sullivan?
Yes.
Tolman?
Yes.
Bacon?
Yes.
Anderson Burgos?
Yes.
Bartley?
Yes.
Greeny?
Yes.
Hernandez.
Yes.
Unanimous vote.
With your vote, you approve the transfer. 20D, $65,000 from stabilization to legal claims. Recommend that be adopted. Motion be receive, adopt, pass first reading or discussion. Councilor McGivern.
Thank you, Mr. President. This was, with your order, the second item that we held in executive session because of pending litigation. Again, a proposal from the mayor negotiated through the law department of settling a suit known as, I believe it's pronounced Pagan versus the city of Holyoke. This suit's a little bit different, dating back to October of 2016, I believe. The offer settlement is for $65,000. Our law department and mayor are recommending that we do settle it. It would not admit to any wrongdoing by the Holyoke Police Department, but it would settle a suit that involved a grandmother, I believe, and a 7-year-old, I'm sorry, a little bit older than that,
12-year-old.
12-year-old, in an incident that took place with use of force with the Holyoke Police Department. There's certainly more than one side to this story. However, under the circumstances, the recommendation is that we do settle, and the committee is recommending that the $65,000 transfer be allowed so that the city can settle the suit itself.
Is there no further discussion? So motion is to pass the first reading. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion is passed the second reading. Clerk will call a roll. If you vote yes, you're voting for the $65,000.
Leahy?
He's abstaining.
Lisi?
Yes.
McGee?
Yes.
McGivern?
Yes.
Murphy?
Yes.
Sullivan?
Yes.
Tolman?
Yes.
Bacon?
Yes.
Anderson Burgos?
Yes.
Bartley?
Yes.
Greeny?
Yes.
Hernandez.
Yes.
11 yeas, 1 abstain.
With your vote, you approve the $65,000. 20E. Council hereby accept the 2020 State 911 Department Training Grant. Motion be receive, adopt, pass first reading. Under discussion, Councilor McGivern.
Okay. My first agenda crisis.
$15,326 for the year for the 911 Department Training Grant.
Got it. We had Sergeant Hart from the police department who is almost 9 out of 10 times before us for grants that come in through the police department and does quite the job of working and getting the grants, but also quite the job, more important, of overseeing them and working with the city to make sure
that they are, that they are properly used. This particular grant, as it sounds, is for dispatchers. This takes care of 12 full-time dispatchers and I want to say four part-time dispatchers. It involves mandatory training for each of these individuals that they have to go through on an annual basis, and this grant will pay for that training itself.
No further discussion. Motion is to pass the first reading. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Motion to pass the second reading.
Motion is to pass the second reading. Clerk will call roll. If you vote yes, you're voting for the grant.
Leahy? He's abstaining. Lisi?
Yes.
McGee?
Yes.
McGivern?
Yes.
Murphy?
Yes.
Sullivan?
Yes.
Tolman?
Yes.
Bacon?
Yes.
Anderson Burgos?
Yes.
Bartley?
Yes.
Graney?
Yes.
Hernandez?
Yes.
Is Leahy abstaining on this vote as well? Or is he just
No.
absent? Okay.
No.
11 yeas.
With your vote, you approved the grant 20F. Committee on Finance has referred the Shannon grant. Motion would be receive, adopt, pass the first reading. Under discussion, Councilor McGivern.
Thank you, Mr. President. This is an annual grant that is received through the city of Holyoke. We are the, I guess, for better or lack of term, the lead city, the lead agency in the grant that comes in that is shared by a number of different not-for-profits, including the city of Chicopee itself. It's not, we've asked these questions in the past, but there's explanation, and the auditor was with us last night, and she's comfortable with the way it's handled, although she actually told us that the city of Chicopee is in good standing with the state on the way they use their monies that are dispersed and the way they spend them. Real quick, some of the agencies include the Boys and Girls Club, the HISET program offered by Holyoke Community College. Chicopee uses it for their Boys and Girls Club, and I think it's their Parks and Rec. The HPD uses part of this grant for police officers. It all involves youth at risk. It all involves with the idea of trying to keep some of our youth off the streets and out of the courts, out of juvenile courts in particular, to try to work with the youth who are involved in the court system and to offer them better solutions to the way they live their life. I forget how many years we've had the Shannon grant. It's been used for a number of different things. The high school does use it. They use it for, one of the things they use it for, which we gave them some grief over a couple of years ago, was kind of discussed this evening indirectly by some of our retired teachers, is discipline being called restorative action. We've been told that restorative action is just part of the way discipline is applied at the high school, but I just hope that with some of the things that have happened at the high school, and we may be discussing a little bit more about this at a future date with the money being requested for police officer at that school. But these are the items that come in, these are items that are spent. The committee feels that the Shannon grant is a generous grant and money well spent by all of the entities who get a piece of it.
Councilor Tallman.
Yeah, very well said. I want to thank Sergeant Hart and his team that got this grant for us. It's really important that we utilize this. I believe it's maybe about $30,000 or $40,000 more than last year, which is an improvement. And all the agencies that it helps throughout the Boys Club, the Holyoke Community College, Youth at Risk, South Holyoke Initiative, that really makes a difference in the lives of our youth in this area, and to help promote positive things happening in kids' lives, and to keep them really on the streets and out of the jails. So it's really it's an important tool that we get every year. Sometimes we take it for granted, but it's important that we have this this grant, this funding to help out our youth in Holyoke.
Councilor Bartley.
Yeah, so I want to thank everybody for last night. I did do a little. This is a state grant. I always thought it was a federal grant, and Charles Shannon, senator, was a Massachusetts state senator, from Winchester. So now deceased. So I just want to make that little note. More to the point, Mr. President, I want to note in here two things. One is that we filed an order and we passed it into ordinance last year to make sure that we have a follow-up with outcomes and inputs and outcomes relative to grants. And we finally got one report, or two reports last night from HPD. So I want us to all be aware that these are due to us when we pass a grant. We're not just saying, you know, run. Because you saw what happened last year with all those outstanding bills, Mr. President. And now we're having to bite the bullet with a negative $464,000 free cash because the grants were not properly administered. Or something, I mean, something went wrong. I mean, there's a reason why we have, there's some weird reason why we have all these deficits in grants. So I'm going to blame it on the administration until proven otherwise. My other point, Mr. President, is $120,000 of this is for gang suppression patrols and the mobile community policing unit, the truck that's parked around, you know, the SWAT truck used to be, and now the officers set up a 12-hour, 3-4-hour shifts is what I believe they do, and it's a really nice feature. They set up a tent with a mobile unit, and they patrol, you know, several blocks. It's really helpful. But I make that point because, Mr. President, I said it to the auditor last night, that this ought to be notated. And I think Mike, when he was here, I think he agreed that this ought to be notated in, I realize it's a separate item and it's coming from a grant and it's not City of Holyoke taxpayers, but it ought to be noted in the HPD's, in our budget book, as some kind of a footnote there to say that there's another $120,000 that HPD is getting, earning, mind you, but receiving for overtime. I think we have to keep that in mind when we assess the budgets and we look at the fiscal state of the city. When we hear from the police chief that, you know, our budget is super tight, well, let's put all our public dollars on the table. And sometimes when we pass these things in January or February, when it comes to May and June at budget time, I mean, I'm not saying I forget it, but it's just, it'd be nice to have a little footnote in the budgets to remind us that these happen. So there was some indication that this would be, that this idea would be accepted, but at least those of us that were here last night and here tonight, we have to make our own notes and keep our own set of, you know, the background and keep it in mind because we're going to get these. We're going to get these same arguments, Mr. President. And even the finance chair made it, like by May, Joe, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but he made it very clear just the importance of monitoring the overtime. I think he made a very pointed reference to the superior officers here, and I couldn't agree more, is that we realize it's there for a reason, but if we can sort of curtail it, we won't run into this huge fiscal black hole that we ran into this year. Thank you.
No further discussion. The motion is to pass the first reading. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Motion to pass the second reading.
Motion is passed the second reading. Clerk will call the roll. If you vote yes, you're voting for the Shannon grant.
Leahy?
I think this is an abstain for him.
Okay. Thank you. Lisi?
Yes.
McGee?
Yes.
McGivern?
Yes.
Murphy?
Yes.
Sullivan?
Yes.
Tallman?
Yes.
Bacon?
Yes.
Anderson Burgos?
Yes.
Bartley?
Yes.
Graney? Yes. Hernandez? 11 yeas, 1 abstain.
For your vote, you approve the grant. 20G is the STEP grant. City hereby accept the provisions of the STEP grant, which is the traffic enforcement grant. Motion that be approved. So receive, adopt, pass first reading. Our discussion. Councilor McGivern.
Thank you, Mr. President. Another annual grant that the police department, and it might be a quick reminder, in the past have been able to accept this grant and apply it to what is known as the worst 10 intersections in the city, of which we have about 50. This year, there's good news, is the state is allowing the police department to be a little bit more flexible with the enforcement. They will use this grant for additional traffic patrols and hit some of the highlighted. Many city councilors have let them know, our constituents, noting that there are certain areas where there are a lot of different issues with traffic enforcement. The amount is $27,740.
with, I believe, an additional equal amount coming in the future if everything goes well. But the committee does recommend that we accept it and allow the police to use it for traffic enforcement.
Motion is to receive, adopt, pass the first reading. All those in favor?
Aye.
All
Motion to
opposed?
pass the second reading.
Motion is passed the second reading. Clerk call roll. If you vote yes, you're voting for the grant.
Leahy?
Yes.
Lisi?
Yes.
McGee?
Yes.
McGivern?
Yes.
Murphy?
Yes.
Sullivan?
Yes.
Tolman?
Yes.
Bacon?
Yes.
Anderson Burgos?
Yes.
Bartley?
Yes.
Graney?
Yes.
Hernandez.
Yes.
Unanimous vote.
With your vote, you approve the grant. 20H is City Council hereby accept the provisions of the Municipality Preparedness Program Grant. That be adopted. This motion will be receive, adopt, pass the first reading. Our discussion, Councilor McGivern.
Thank you, Mr. President. If I'm reading my own writing correct, it's $93,853. There is a match with this grant. The good news is the match, which is $2,500, is being picked up by Nature, and someone else help me out. Nature
Conservancy.
Conservancy. Thank you.
I believe it's $25,000.
With a $15,075 donation to the city of Holyoke for the same purpose. Let me explain the purpose first. We all know that one of the big issues, Bob Parent, our city engineer, was with us this evening, just does an incredible job of explaining things. We all know the issues that that come with the combined sewer overflow and the mandate of the Clean Air Water Act, that we have to eliminate and reduce the amount of untreated water that goes into the Connecticut River. We know it's very expensive. We've done some projects, and we have many projects to go. But one of the solutions that would help CSO problems would be to address stormwater drain off and to direct stormwater drain off away from our sewers. The stormwater doesn't need to be in the sewer. It doesn't need to be treated. And there's a number of ways to do it, but because we're an older city, too many of our sewers are our stormwater drains. So this grant allows the city to work with a number of different property owner parcels that, you know, could better direct stormwater coming off of their parking services, coming off of their services that are into grass, into green, you know, green land, into the land itself. This is a time-sensitive grant in that the money we receive must be spent this fiscal year. Bob said, you know, it happens every year. You know, by the time the state gets into the position where they allocate the money or allow the money to be allocated, we're halfway through the year. They need to get this going and to get it going very quickly. There was a good question asked last night. I think we all know the language we read, Mr. President, it's up there somewhere, is that when we vote on accepting a grant, we're also voting on all the resources necessary, a fund created for allocating the money out of, and the money being spent out of that fund. The auditor watches that fund closely, and so on and so forth. We allow the mayor and or city treasurer to accept additional monies or additional resources for the purpose of this grant. Well, this is one of the first times I've heard this, where we know that someone else is giving us the money that will qualify for the match itself. And we asked the auditor, and we got kind of an answer this evening that we should include that number in the motion this evening. Now, I know that's tricky because we can't amend the grant itself, but this is part of the language of what we're adopting. I think we need to at least note that in order to satisfy the match itself, we also are accepting the gift from Nature Conservancy. Thank you.
And what was the gift?
The total gift is $25,000.
Up to.
And the match is, I said it backwards, the match is $15,075. The total gift is up to $25,000.
All right, so
Well, Joe, the total grant is $93,850, right?
Correct.
Yep. Okay, and then the local match is
$15,075.
15, whatever it is.
Yep.
15 something.
So it's part of the grant award, so.
It is indirectly, but it's different, and we've never crossed this before, and
you know, I'm going to leave it up to you, Mr. President, and the body, if we need a separate order. You know, but, you know, we can accept the grant, but we may need a separate order to accept the money that will cover our match.
You would need a separate order. If it's not in here, you'd need a separate order.
That's fine. But I believe we can still accept the grant and the DPW can still spend it, as long as we're on the same page, knowing that match, when we accept the grant, we owe the match.
Yep.
And we understand it's coming from the gift that is, you know, up to $25,000.
Correct. Counselor Bartley.
And this one, go ahead, Counselor, go ahead.
No, I was just talking on the side. I was just saying, couldn't we file it as a late file for the match?
Sure.
Well, no, that'd have to come from the auditor.
Oh,
Yeah, well, I mean, we can file a late file to request it,
it's gonna
but
come from
We would
the
need the mayor's signature
That's
because
right.
it's,
Mayor, I
yeah.
think.
Gotcha.
We could do the order, but we still gotta get the mayor to sign
Correct.
off on it because it's considered an appropriation.
Oh, Deputy Mayor's here.
Counselor Bartley, do you have a?
This is actually time sensitive. That's what our city engineer said.
All right, so motion is to accept the grant, which is the 93,000, and then if the match has to come in, which it will have to after, we'll wait for that for the next committee meeting. We just know we'll be on the hook for it. So, motion is passed the first reading. All those in favor?
Aye.
All opposed?
Motion to pass the second reading.
Motion is passed the second reading. Clerk call roll. If you vote yes, you're voting for the grant.
Leahy,
Yes.
Lisi,
Yes.
McGee,
Yes.
McGivern,
Yes.
Murphy.
Yes.
Sullivan,
Yes.
Tallman,
Yes.
Bacon,
Yes.
Anderson Burgos, Bartley,
Yes.
Graney,
Yes.
Hernandez.
Yes.
Unanimous vote.
Your vote, you approve the grant. 20I is done, 20J is done, 20K. Committee on Finance was referred 7,500 from stabilization to extra clerical. Recommended that be adopted. Motion be to pass the first reading under discussion. Councilor McGivern.
Thank you, Mr. President. This was one of our split decisions. It's a 3 to 2 vote out of committee. Real quick, extracurricular is a line item within the mayor's budget. Extracurricular covers for a position that allows the office to bring in someone to replace certain duties that are performed by staff members that are currently on board. Besides the mayor in that office, we have Mike, who is works closely with the mayor, well, works with the mayor's office, but works across the way. But we have Andres and Nilka, who's been there since, I think, Elaine Pluto was mayor, if I remember correctly. One of the things that Mike Bloomberg pointed out to us, that because we don't have an automated system for a telephone and we don't have a switchboard, you know, so to speak, or a main number to call, when someone Googles the city of Holyoke, they get the mayor's office, and many phone calls comes into the mayor's office. I think the city clerk will tell us many phone calls comes into the city clerk's office too, which we understand. And in view of that, at the moment, you know, a very costly switchover and a switchover to something automated, just wouldn't make, in a number of ways, wouldn't make sense. So some of us agreed that, you know, we would, at this point, because we have the extra money, that we would replace the budget cut and put the $7,500 back into the budget to allow the mayor to be able to hire. The mayor, Mr. Bloomberg, did tell us that what they do on a regular basis is when they're looking for these individuals, is they actually hire interns, and the interns get the stipend as they are performing their internship.
Councilor Bacon.
Thank you, Mr. President. I just want to note that I'll be voting against any of the transfers out of stabilization that we already cut in the budget process. This is now, let's see, we've had one bite at the apple, then we had 3 more supplemental budgets brought to us in December, and here we are again, still talking about the budget. I mean, at a certain point, we have to have completed our budget and live within it. In the meantime, while we're talking about restoring things that we cut back in June, we have neighborhoods waiting for projects to be completed for over a year. Why? Because it costs $15,000. So we don't really have any extra money left over from the point of view of the taxpayers that are talking to me. So that's just my position on all of these that pertain to the budget cuts that we already all agreed to. Thank you.
No one further? So motion would be to pass the first reading. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed?
Motion to pass the second reading.
Motion is to pass the second reading. The clerk will call the roll. If you vote yes, you're voting for the transfer.
Leahy? Yes. Lisi?
Yes.
McGee?
No.
McGivern?
Yes.
Murphy?
No.
Sullivan?
No.
Tallman?
Yes.
Bacon?
No.
Anderson Burgos?
Yes.
Bartley?
No.
Graney? Hernandez?
Yes.
6 yeas, 6 nays.
Your vote does not carry. 20 L. For Command Finance, 13,000 from stabilization to telephone usage. Recommend that be adopted. Motion is passed first reading. Our discussion, Councilor McGivern.
Thank you, Mr. President. This was brought to our attention as a poor just a bad calculation within the budget itself. It was a mistake that occurred, not a typo, but just a miscalculation of the amount of money needed for telephone usage. Telephone usage, for the most part, comes out of the purchasing department, something that we actually, as a council, suggested and agreed to many years ago to be able to monitor it as opposed to having each department have their own line item for telephone usage. But we were informed last night that both Verizon and our second carrier, which is Cracker, that this is the money necessary to get us through the end of the fiscal year.
Okay, for discussion, motion is to pass the first reading. All those in favor? All opposed?
Motion to pass the second reading.
Motion is passed the second reading. Clerk will call roll. If you vote yes, you're voting for the transfer of 13,000.
Leahy? Yes. Lisi?
Yes.
McGee?
Yes.
McGivern?
Yes.
Murphy?
Yes.
Sullivan?
Yes.
Tallman?
Yes.
Bacon?
Yes.
Anderson Burgos?
Yes.
Bartley?
Yes.
Graney? Hernandez?
Yes.
Unanimous vote.
With your vote, you approve the transfer. 20M, the Hoyoke Homes Project, or South Hoyoke Homes Project grant. Set up an account to accept the funds. Motion is receive, adopt, pass first reading. Under discussion, Councilor McGivern.
Thank you, Mr. President. I think not just the fact that this is probably one of the more significant grant numbers we've seen in a long number. It's $6,566,000. It's an incredible project that also complements a project that's being going forward with the Hoyoke Housing Authority itself. I'm just going to speak briefly, and I'm sure Councilor Murphy, and he has in the past, been keeping a very good eye on this project and also is very well aware of the intricacies of the project itself. It's South Hoyoke. It's the South Home project itself is going to bring in a number of units. Part of them, I was hoping for a little bit higher number, is going to be home ownership townhouses, about 20 plus of those. There's going to be a rental tower, so to speak, in the third phase. And in the first phase, there's going to be 12 units of rentals. Kind of along the idea of the Hope 6 project, but maybe not quite as large as the Hope 6 project. But the grant itself is also going to bring along with this housing project a number of street improvements right from down the ground zero and up, which I think is something that is very necessary in this neighborhood. We recommend that we accept this. There are no matches. The city, both the Housing Authority, DPW, are well along the way of the conceptual planning phases, and it's we believe, a good project and a great number. I think it's the largest number we received under this particular grant itself through the state in a long time.
Councilor Bartley.
Yeah, that was 2 meetings ago, Joe? That was 2 meetings ago.
Yeah. Yes.
You having fun, Joe?
No.
I'm going to speak in favor of this, but I just want us to be somewhat realistic. I don't want to be a wet blanket on it. This doesn't build one unit, not one. All right, so let's be real about it. All right, this is all for infrastructure in around Carlos Vega Park. Does it build one unit housing? This sets the table. The expectation is for a certain number of units and not an overwhelming amount. And if it was like a Hope 6, I tell you, well, I would be all in, and I'm pretty sure everybody else would be here too. That's just a tremendous property, and it's really stood the test of time, at least this version. The original version wasn't so great. But this version is great. And so I just wanted to know that. And who's going to be the developer of this? Well, probably Holyoke Housing Authority is going to be the developer of this, Mr. President. So why am I saying I don't want to be a total wet blanket? Because I want us to just keep in mind that orders have been filed relative to pilots. Holyoke Housing, and this is all public information, so we're not saying anything, but it's stuff where you gotta, you just gotta drill down into the documents. Holyoke Housing Authority pays a pilot payment in lieu of taxes to the city of Holyoke south of $3,300 a year. They have approximately 900 rental units of their own. They administer approximately 1,400 vouchers, Mr. President. That's 2,300 units of housing. They pay a pilot south of $3,300 annually. This is why counselors have been filing orders relative to see if we can work together. Now, it's Holyoke Housing Authority, so, well, let's think about that. Well, in their most recent meeting minutes that I received, Mr. President, I'm going to point out two things. One, they all gave themselves a raise in executive session. So everybody there got a raise, from the executive director to other employees. I don't doubt it was all well-earned, but they all got raises. Second of all, in their reserves, now this is a public meeting minute, $5.8 million in reserves for Holyoke Housing Authority. So why am I saying this? I mean, the question might be, well, Counselor, they're doing a great job. And I'm just saying, Mr. Mainville, the commissioners are doing a good job, but they're doing their job. They built up the reserve. The city of Holyoke is still coming through, was met with a very significant grant that's going to ultimately benefit, just like the city of Holyoke did for what transpired over here with Lyman Terrace. I agree with most of it. I didn't agree with the park that was built. We're not going to go down that road again, and the way that was triggered by Holyoke Housing Authority. I won't say more, but generally I've agreed with the Lyman Terrace project. This project here in South Holyoke, I'm going to generally agree with the development of it. I'm sure I'll be supportive of it. I support this grant, but I want us to all just sort of take a deep breath. When it comes to pilots, we've got to understand that everybody's got to kick in their fair share, even a public housing authority. In this case, one where everybody got a raise in executive session, so those minutes have not been released. I don't know what their raises are, but they all got raises. And second of all, reserves of $5.8 million. They have some resources in which to help out the city of Holyoke. My hope is that the more we make this public, when it comes back before us, because we know only the mayor can negotiate pilots, Mr. President, we know that. But we're hopeful that we'll get some movement on this when we just keep banging on the door. Thank you.
Councilor Sullivan.
Yeah, and
sorry. Go ahead, Councilor Sullivan. Go ahead.
Yep. No, I just also would like to footnote, I'm going to vote to accept it, but here we go. When we read the grant, it's proudly awarded by the Baker Polito administration, the same administration that couldn't find another dime for us for the new schools. $6.5 million for streetscape. None of this to build these apartments. None of this to build these homes. Streetscapes. This includes bike lanes that go nowhere. They don't connect to any other bike lanes in the city. I was explained it was like a chair. You got to put one piece, and sooner or later they're all fit together. All really nice frills, really nice amenities. $6.5 million worth, but we couldn't find one more dime for the schools. Thank you, Boston.
Councilor Murphy.
Yeah, naturally I'm going to be in favor of this. Two things. Number one, the infrastructure in South Holyoke has long been in need of significant investment, and I think that's part of what's going on. And yes, they are trying to tie it in to the general area of what the South Holyoke Homes project would be. I would also say, and to my knowledge, at this point, the only firm plans I've seen are 12 apartment buildings, 2 6-apartment buildings on Southeast and Hamilton. That is looking like the very first project, and then 24 homes on Clemente and East Street from Sargent to Hamilton. Then there's talk about expanding units, and my argument has been that we would want more home ownership and less apartment units. And part of this is to provide home ownership opportunities for some of the residents in South Holyoke who could then afford to live in a home, which would, again, improve the neighborhood, provide some economic diversity, and some additional opportunities. So I don't think it's ironclad, and I know there's a meeting tomorrow morning as we continue on in discussions, but I don't think this is ironclad. But I do think that the 12 apartment units and the 24 home units are pretty firm. And I know I've got an order file to try to work on some of the logistics of that later on in this meeting. But, you know, I appreciate, and I'm not a fancy bike person either, but I know some of the other things are to try to make sure we have, you know, water projects done, sewer projects done, and all those things. And we're trying to tie it all in because the Jackson Street sewer project is going to be taking place. They're trying to use this money and try to do it where we can tie it all in without doing one project and then tearing it back up and doing another. So it does make sense from a timing perspective. And again, I think it'll make a difference in South Holyoke. It also, psychologically, from several of my constituents, has given them the view that the state and the city are investing in their neighborhood. And I think that is something we got to do. And I'll be talking about that at Public Safety on Thursday. Thank you.
Councilor Hernandez.
Yes, I want to add that, of course, I'm going to vote in favor of this. And being a former employee of the Holyoke Housing Authority, having been a property manager in South Holyoke, I want to say that this is going to revitalize. I'm in favor of it. It's going to rebrand the most impoverished neighborhood of this city. And this is a start. Whether it's just for the streets, landscaping, to make bike paths, it's going to give a lift to that neighborhood. And therefore, it will lead to more resources and more projects there. So I am in favor of it. Thank you.
Well, further motion is to pass the first reading. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed?
Motion to pass the second reading.
Motion is passed the second reading. Clerk will call roll. If you vote yes, you're accepting the grant.
Leahy?
Yes.
Lisi? Yes. McGee?
Yes.
McGivern?
Yes.
Murphy?
Yes.
Sullivan?
Yes.
Tallman?
Yes.
Bacon?
Yes.
Anderson Burgos?
Yes.
Bartley?
Yes.
Greenie?
Yes.
Hernandez?
Yes.
Unanimous vote.
With your vote, you approve 20M. 20N is Committee on Finance, $11,000 from pension to pay fire chief. Motion is receive, adopt, pass the first reading. Or discussion?
Thank you, Mr. President. The $11,000 comes from non-contributory pensions. Just a real quick explanation. That's money that is for an individual who was working for the city of Holyoke at the time, began before the retirement pension system was put in place, and then it could be the individual and or spouse that has the right to the pension itself. There aren't that many of them left. It's a numbers game, but there is an item in the budget. Councilor Bartley asked last night, are we over budgeting for some of these departments if there's no one left in the individual departments? And I think we're going to look at that closely with next year's budget. It's going into our new fire chief's contract. The contract is negotiated by the mayor. This is a professional contract, similar but a little bit different than the contractual union contracts that we're used to. A fire chief and the chief of police are both individuals who have contracts, are allowed to contract with the city to protect them as individuals for their employment and to protect the city as to what is expected of their responsibility of performing their duties itself. The $11,000 would be enough to get us through the remainder of the fiscal year. Note, it does include prior years. This was a separate line item some years back of $4,000 for the ER management duties that are performed by the fire chief. And in the years past, other individuals have performed those duties. And the total salary negotiated is $34,500. Again, it's for our new chief. He's the acting chief right now. He officially takes over on February 10th.
No further discussion, or Councilor Bartley?
Sorry, I'm just going to make a comment. Jeff Preskopowski is somebody I've known since I was 11 years old. So he's, but I said to him last night, it's not about that. It's about, you know, the contract itself. Now, Jeff is a tremendous credit to his family, to his department, and to the city of Holyoke. But I didn't just say yes to it. I asked him some good, hard questions, and he did respond. I would have felt a little bit better if we had, if the contract wasn't a cut and paste job from the other. It was basically a cut and paste job from the other contract with Chief Pond. Jeff's salary is a little bit north of Chief Pond's, but I mean Jeff's almost he's been deputy chief for years. He was a 25-year veteran. Like I said, he's knows the department inside out. Plus, he's also been probably the primary grant writer for a number of years. I did ask him about the number of deputy chiefs that we have in the city of Holyoke. 6. He argued that it's comparable to other communities. I mean, where I was driving it to see if we could, find some cost savings, and no one has been nominated to fill his. Jeff comes on February 11th as a new chief, so no one's been nominated yet to replace him as deputy chief. But I think it was maybe like the captains in the police department. Maybe there'd be a chance at, possibly a chance at some savings. I do thank the finance chair for pointing out the cost center from which this was used. We pointed out last night. That's just was sitting there like a potted plant. The same number. It's a weird number, Mr. President. $24,222 or something. Been sitting there pretty much unused in every budget book I have, going back to 2012. I was used once. Okay, so I'll stand corrected. But basically, it's not even used. So I don't even know why it's sitting there. I'm glad we have it. I guess now for our sake, we don't have to go into stabilization. But right. There's really no purpose to it, so other departments probably have it, the major departments, maybe police and DPW, so that's something we ought to maybe ask the department heads come budget time next year. One last thing I'm going to point out is that the benefits in there are, well, the one thing last thing I'll end in this way, the only thing I didn't, the one main things I didn't like in there was the use of the car. The sentence read, Mr. President, the chief can use the car for any purpose. So, theoretically, he could drive to Miami Beach with his family, hang out there with, he's got a lot of vacation time, and then come back. It would have been nice if the law department went over it and just said, reasonable use would have been, usually that's the standard that most contract attorneys look to. So, but that's just small potatoes, knowing Jeff. He's just an honorable person. He deserves the money. He's going to be a credit to the city. I have every confidence in him to lead the fire department going forward. Thank you.
Councilor Sullivan.
I would just like to remind the other members of the council, when we did the budget last year, we had the chance to do the same, similar to what we did with the captains on the police department. We knew that the chief was retiring in January. We did have a motion out to only fund the additional deputy for half a year. That failed. At the very least, right now, we could have that in front of us as a measure to look for some way of having some savings in the department and at least having a discussion about it, but it's not available to us. So as we go into the next budget cycle, when opportunities like this once again present themselves to us, I hope people remember this moment.
All right, so the motion is to pass the first reading. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed?
Motion to pass the second reading.
Motion is passed the second reading. Clerk will call a roll. If you vote yes, you're voting for the transfer.
Leahy? Yes. Lisi?
Yes.
McGee?
Yes.
McGivern?
Yes.
Murphy?
Yes.
Sullivan?
Yes.
Tallman?
Yes.
Bacon?
Yes.
Anderson Burgos?
Yes.
Bartley?
Yes.
Graney?
Yes.
Hernandez?
Yes.
Unanimous vote.
Mr. President, if I could just tell a funny story because we need one.
Sure.
On my drive down here at about 6:45, I got a phone call before I was driving, because that's against the law. I was in the driveway. And it was our new fire chief. I promised I would not tell the city council this until after we voted on the transfer. But he called me up and said, did the contract go back to committee, Joe? And I said, what are you talking about, Jeff? He goes, I was just watching the Access channel, and Mr. McGee just said, refer the fire chief's contract to the Committee on Finance. I said, Jeff, you're watching a repeat from a month ago.
Well, if you want to send it back, Joe, that's all you had to say.
And you can I think I'm in trouble for telling that story.
And you
That's
can
a
use
little concerning.
And you can use your cell phone until the 23rd.
No secrets on this.
Does he realize the Patriots are not playing the Super Bowl?
Hey, Siri.
20-0 and 20P, do you want to take them as a package or comply
If
with?
we could do 20-0 and 20P, because it's the same vote and they've been complied with.
All
I'll
right, so
explain
suspend the
real
rules,
quickly.
take up O and P as a package. All those in favor?
Aye.
All
Aye.
opposed? O is that the city council take up final action on the bond issued for the two schools as soon as possible. And 20B is that we go into executive session with regards to cases that we already talked about, complied with. You want 20Q as well?
20Q, we're going to have to vote because we have to
Yeah,
deny it.
all right,
We have to
so
do a
let's
roll call
just do
vote.
O and P.
Yeah.
So these have been complied with.
20-0 is Councilor Bartley's order, goes with 20Q, but we do have to take a separate vote.
All right, so motion is that these are complied with. All those in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? 20Q. Committee on Finance has referred the city appropriate $131,446,804 for the purpose of design, cost, building of middle schools. Motion that be denied. Motion is receive, adopt, pass first reading. Under discussion, Councilor McGivern.
I think it speaks for itself. This has been in committee for close to a year now. The Mass Building School Association did not take their final vote until after the override vote, which we all know the override vote was necessary. Not in the beginning when we first started discussing this was this known to the city and to the city council anyways, but the override vote was a necessary revenue source because the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, within their infinite wisdom, have put a very strict construction cap on school reimbursement dollars. We in the past, and in all communities in the past, have been receiving 80 to 90%. A gateway community that we are, we were guaranteed 80% of whatever we're eligible for. To get around that, the MSDA, did a formula that created a construction cap, which to me is defeating the purpose of helping out, especially helping out gateway communities, but also making it impossible. The committee itself had more than one discussion on this particular request before the override vote, and even with an override vote, if that construction cap was not adjusted, there was a very good chance that this would not have been a favorable vote to borrow the money, because even with the override revenue coming in, it would not offset what the construction cap does. With that in mind, this is housekeeping. There is no revenue coming in to be able to vote on this bond. The project has been killed at the moment by the state, and any future projects will have to be reapplied for.
So motion is to receive, adopt, pass first reading. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed?
Pass the second reading?
Motion is to pass the second reading. Clerk will call the roll. If you vote yes, you're voting to deny.
Leahy? Lisi?
Yes.
McGee?
Yes.
McGivern?
Yes.
Murphy?
Yes.
Sullivan?
Yes.
Tallman?
Yes.
Bacon?
Yes.
Anderson Burgos?
Yes.
Bartley?
Yes.
Rainey?
Yes.
Hernandez?
Yes.
Unanimous vote.
With your vote, you deny the bond. No Public Safety Committee, no Public Service, off to DGNR 20.
Oh, did we
No,
forget one?
missed one.
President,
We did
we're
miss
not-
one. Oh,
20R?
got 20R. I do
Call for sports.
apologize.
You can make it quick. If I can make a motion, refer 20R back to the Committee on Finance.
Oh,
Second.
motion is refer 20R to Finance. All those in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? I'm sorry.
Uh,
We miss anything else before I jump to DGNR?
Oh, I have my hand up,
Oh, I'm sorry, Counselor. Sorry.
so it's under discussion?
Yeah, okay, go ahead.
Oh, okay, so, all right, so this, so it's okay.
Okay.
I always like a drum roll. This was, Mr. President, this was voted 3-2 last night to be denied. for a lot of reasons. But I want to first of all thank Mr. Lavelle for his time with me on the phone, Mr. Beauregard, who was here last night, I think it was last night, giving his interpretation of what this organization's about. And then there were some, I made my comments the way I made them last night. You can watch them. I'm not going to repeat them, but there were comments made that should not have been made in this body by people that should have known better, and I replied in kind. So that's what I did last night, and that's all on the tape. So you can read or not, and watch or not. I don't care. But the bottom line is at this stage. I got a phone call and then subsequently an email. So I got a phone call from a fellow city councilor today, and then I got an email from department head about this, asking would we reconsider our action and agree to send it back to committee, and maybe somebody else wouldn't have reconsidered it, Mr. President. For example. We've asked the mayor to reconsider his action relative to the natural gas pipeline, because his job is about the city of Holyoke. His job is not as a candidate for another office. His job is about helping the citizens of the city of Holyoke, in my humble, but not just me, forget me, in the gas and electrics, the manager's opinion. But for the mayor's action last April, they would potentially still be in negotiation with Kinder Morgan and/or Columbia Gas, and perhaps we would have an expanded pipeline, and perhaps we wouldn't have these constraints that we have. Now, it's from the manager. So you can call the manager yourself. He has an open door policy, except when groups like the other group that we were going to partner with barge into the 99 Suffolk Street with bullhorns and start banging on his door and terrorizing the employees and the customers of HG&E. That was the group that we were partnering with, Mr. President. So couple those reasons, that's why I voted no for the first time in my career for a grant that didn't have a match. I mean, think about that. We're going to get $275,000. I and two of my colleagues on the Finance Committee voted no to that. But the call came in today by a colleague who I have tremendous respect for, and my colleague also voted no last night. The department head sent out an email, and therefore I'm going to I'll cast my ballot to send this back to committee, where we'll hopefully have another great discussion led by our chairman on this. And it was a great discussion last night, and believe me, his patience was unbelievable, and I get it. But it's a very upsetting thing what happened, Mr. President. And I don't want that to skate by tonight with a little Holyoke shuffle and send this right back to committee without at least putting some context for the public on this. Thank you.
Councilor McGivern.
The purpose of referring back to committee is, as Councilor Bartley said, Marcus Marrero is the lead person for the city on this particular grant and project itself. He wants to go to the Bar Foundation and see if they can work out some things that were of concern to all of them. Not even those of us who voted in favor of accepting the grant had some concerns with parts of the grant and parts of the proposal in front of us. And out of respect, I think it makes sense to put it back in committee to allow the department head time to talk with and the Bar Foundation is, if not the largest charitable organization within the not only in the state, but I think within New England. It may be the largest. Their net worth is in the trillions, and the money that they dish out is incredible not just in the millions, but close to billions. There's someone that I think we want to work with, even if we disagree with some things that have happened and disagree with the way some things are being done. This is the last order for finance this evening, outside of what's going into finance later. Again, I thank the members and thank everybody who was present. Thank everybody for putting up with us. You can tell we were a little bit cranky, a little bit tired. I'm not going to apologize for that, because the president made us work 4 hours and 75 minutes last night. Councilor Bartley was a new addition to the committee, very welcomed, an incredible committee person, not just in his own committees, but he does his work. He does his work when he's in the committee. He was a little bit conservative earlier this evening when he said that while we were doing the police officer's contract, he added an hour or two to discussion. We took a straw vote afterwards without him. He just shows up, he adds an hour and a half to our meeting. So, Mr. President, you know, he took your place. We're a good committee, but we're an hour and a half into it as soon as David shows up. Just wanted to let you know that.
I knew he would provide a thorough review. That's what I knew. So 20R, what was, Councilor Tallman first.
Yeah, I just want to state I was one of the 2 members that voted to accept this grant, and I want to say that I am glad it's going back to Finance Committee to get some more discussion. I think we heard last night that you know, some things happen, and there's some things in that grant that maybe some of us don't agree with, but I think we all can sit down collectively. I still haven't talked to the manager of the G&E yet, but I like to hear his thoughts on this. But him and Marcos definitely want to get back and talk to the bar group and try to find out, you know, with the Bar Foundation how we can sort of work together to sort of work with all partners, and even though we may have our differences, to sort of work toward doing what's best for our community and saving energy. So. I'm glad it's going back to committee, and I said I just want to state that I was one of the 2 that did vote to accept this grant.
Councilor Bacon.
And, Mr. President, and I support it going back to committee, but I also think we have to support our HG&E with having adequate infrastructure to meet the gas needs of our businesses and residents, which currently are not being met. And we keep saying we're business friendly, but talk to the businesses who are trying to add gas because they need gas to run their business. And talk to the ones that have the propane trucks parked in front of their businesses. It's not very green. We need to use both while we are making progress in the least harmful options. Thank you.
So motion is to send 20R back to committee. All those in favor?
Aye.
All right, so now we're back to DGNR. 23A, Committee on DGNR is referred an order 2019 annual plan reprogramming of the CDBG grant funds, recommended approved as amended.
Motion to receive and adopt the committee report.
Motion is to
Second.
receive, adopt. Under discussion, Councilor Bartley.
Thank you, Mr. President. We had Alicia Zeller here when we met. We met twice this month. One time we had a adjourn, and that was I really got to thank Councilor Tallman for that. 'Cause I was really kind of leaning on him for that. I'm glad we did adjourn. That really was the appropriate thing to do. But then we met January 22nd, and we have some extra monies left over in block grants that can be reprogrammed. Just as a gentle reminder, we will be doing this this is FY 20. Wow, am I losing it? We will be having more CDBG stuff coming up for FY 21, but these are funds from prior years that have to be reprogrammed per HUD rules. So there's $487,000 left over, and the department head, Ms. Zeller, said she wants to reprogram $472,000, and we made one change, and we all voted on it. I may have my notes obviously, but I don't have the vote. I think the vote was unanimous on that, but I probably wrote it on the jacket. I didn't write it on the in my notes, but I think it was unanimous. But regardless, the one change we made was to remove the HVAC from the boathouse, which is at Jones Ferry, which, as we all know, is at the south end of Main Street. I hope we all know where that is. It's a really magnificent building, the Sue Ellen Panich Boathouse. It's a nice facility, it's used, but that was put in a new HVAC. Definitely needed, but the motion that carried was to was to leave $50,000 into what's called the Scotts Tower Master Plan, and that's to, hopefully to try to figure out something for what should be an iconic part of the city. Sadly, when Route 91 came in the 60s, it kind of cut that off from most constituents. It's become kind of ripe with vandalism. I'm not sure if there's really any nefarious activity there other than vandalism, but it really should be a nice area. And a few years ago, Councilor Jordan and I led a cleanup. We had a bunch of muscle from the Hampden County Sheriff's Department, and those guys just went to town for 3 hours and did a great job cleaning it up, and I'd be more than happy to do that again. But nevertheless, those of us that remember Shimura, those of us remember Scotts Tower in its heyday, would like to see it come back. And the thinking is that if we vote to do this, maybe we can influence the decision maker. But just the wet blanket part of this is all part of a game, as we say every year when we do this. This is just a game. The game is that we take votes, and in this particular instance, they mean nothing, because the mayor is the sole has a sole authority to distribute the funds from CDBG. Perhaps that's something that could be debated with in Congress at some point coming up. Maybe there'd be a little less autonomy and a little more discussion, but be that as it may, that's where we are. So that was the only change we made. The other ones that were in there, $100,000 for sidewalks, $150K for Pena Park spray pool. These are all good. Another $193,975 for Springdale Park improvements. So, the Ward 2 section, South Holyoke, Springdale, really they need the funds, and the committee voted unanimously for these. So the sole change was to swap out some funds from the boathouse and to put back funds that used to be there for Scott Tower. So I'll take any questions if you have it. Thank you.
Councilor Tallman.
Yeah, I just want to state, and it was a good meeting, and it's good to see how this money can be reprogrammed into some projects that actually weren't fully funded, especially the sidewalks, Pena Park and Springdale. That's very important that those areas are taken care of. But I did vote, even though I do know Scotts Tower, Shimura Pool. I loved it up there as a kid. I remember traversing up that hill to go swimming and climbing that tower when I was a kid with my peanut butter and jelly sandwich and little milk chips. And I think it's a worthwhile project, but I did vote for the Sue Ellen Panich boathouse, the HVAC. I think I might have been the only vote, but I do see how this can be beneficial. You got to have the seed money before there's projected money coming down the road. The study of basically what they want to do up in that area, and I think it could be great. But hopefully that with the design and everything happening with that $50,000, that we can procure the extra money to really do some work up there and make that an area that it really was a beautiful area at one time. So just want to state that, and I'm really in favor of especially all the projects that really need the work, especially the sidewalks. I mean, that's sort of a drop in the bucket of what we need for sidewalks, but it's something. It's a start. So.
Anyone further? So the motion is to receive, adopt the block grant as amended. Correct, Councilor Bartley?
Correct.
Want a roll call? First one?
I think you should, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just to be safe.
So motion, clerk will call the roll with regards to as amended.
Leahy? Yes. Lisi?
Yes.
McGee?
Yes.
McGivern?
Yes.
Murphy?
Yes.
Sullivan?
Yes.
Tallman?
Yes.
Bacon?
Yes.
Anderson Burgos?
Yes.
Bartley?
Yes.
Graney?
Yes.
Hernandez?
Yes.
Unanimous vote.
Put your vote, you approved it?
Motion to suspend and take 23C. I don't want to do my homework here. 23D, 23
B.
B as a package. Thank you.
B, C, and D,
B, C,
suspend
and
the
D as a
rules,
package.
take up 23 B, C, and D as a package. All those in favor?
Aye.
All
And the
opposed?
motion would,
So
Receive and adopt the committee
23B is to purchase 2 Vernon Street, 23C is 229 Beach Street, and 23D is 2 St. James Street. Motion is to receive, adopt. Under discussion, Counselor Bartley.
Yeah, motion is receive, adopt the committee report. And so, yeah, we had Mr. Moreau in here, and we had the proponent, and he's the proprietor of Western Mass Demo Corp., and they're from Maderos Way in Westfield. And his deal is as follows. He really hates two of these projects. He really likes one of them, but the way he's going to be good to go with this is if we get all three. So that's why I'm packaging these. We have the one project he really likes is on Beach Street. He thinks he can turn that around and make that a winner. The other two projects are in Springdale. One is the former Turn Hall, where we all, those that play Little League Baseball, we got all our, hot dogs and played basketball there and did whatever we did there. And then there's another building that's really a tight fit. Really a tight fit at the end of what street, Councilor Murphy?
James Street.
James Street.
Yeah. I delivered Meals on Wheels there for years. I think I would remember that. So yeah, we grilled the guy. He asked a lot of questions, but the projects are all valid. These three properties really need serious attention, and especially, all three of them are equal, but in my mind, but the proponent said Beach Street is the one that really is going to be his breadwinner. The other two, his plan is to go in there and zap them. I will point out this, he did try to make a play to get the city of Holyoke to cough up $200,000 for demo work. And fortunately, the department head, before it got to us, said, come back with another proposal. And, so we said, good luck, he said, I tried. I guess we couldn't blame him for trying, but yeah, that was going nowhere fast. So cooler has prevailed, and so it seems credible. It's going to be a question where the city's going to be monitoring this and monitoring the projects. We felt as a committee unanimously that we should support this because it's going to increase development, certainly on Beach Street, which, by the way, that's becoming a really nice corridor. Thanks a lot to this body, I might add. Not so psyched about the ripoff from East Hampton Bank, but that's a whole separate deal that we can't go back on. But that whole corridor there, and I think we're going to have another order coming up down the road relative to putting in some improvements at Wisteria Hearst. So that's going to be, I think that's going to be important. So keeping that project alive, not alive, but keep improving that. So with the other things that are happening on Pine Street and Beach Street, this will be another part of Beach Street that needs attention. The other two are in Springdale. Well, they're going to get probably demoed, and then they're just going to have to build some projects there. But it's worth a shot, Mr. President. So that's it.
Councilor Murphy, then Councilor Sullivan.
Yeah, when I first saw it, I was kind of giving me $1, but I thought maybe James Street could be renovated. Obviously, we were told that it couldn't be, and therefore we would end up having to do the demolition cost of that. And in the Turn Hall, where I would love to have seen the Turn Hall be renovated 10 years ago. Clearly, we've gone well past that, and again, it would be a demolition issue. I've had neighbors on both of those streets telling me their concerns at the Turn Hall about what happens if there's a fire, and then, my house is not that far away. So, I think getting these moved, and then it's my understanding that his goal after demolish is potentially to build either apartments where the Turn Hall was, or two duplexes, and then a duplex potentially on James Street. So, he's talking about doing, he's got a contractor, and I know Councilor Bartley asked him to get back in touch with me, and he did, and I can't remember the contractor's name, but they did get back to me, and they seem legit, so.
Dale Underfer.
Underfer, yeah.
Western Mass Demo.
Yeah.
So,
again, I think we're taking Vernon Street, the upper right-hand corner of Vernon Street, and the upper right-hand corner of James Street, and clearing them up and hopefully making something that's going to be refreshing and new.
Councilor Sullivan.
Yeah, and just so now our Problems Property Group has been stuck with these for quite a while. They've been through every effort to sell them, auction them. Our demolition supervisor has been through them. It was going to be on us, the city demolition crew, to take these down. Even with them involved, it would have cost the city a couple $100,000. So this is a great move. And I also believe, to the credit of the department, there's a reverter clause in there also. So if they do nothing with the properties, we're going to have 2 clean properties. So it's a good deal. It's a great deal.
Counselor
Yeah,
Graham.
the gentleman was impressive. He said he was going to rebuild on those 2 properties in Springdale. And the property on Beach Street has had ply-score windows for the last 20 years, so it's going to be nice to see that property resurrected.
So, Counselor Tallman.
Yeah, we just had a property on Beach, sort of kitty corner to the one on Beach, the 229 Beach that we just did. Mike Moriarty had to put a house in there. It's a duplex, so I think this is great. You know, he talked about that house over there before, for him to come in and to rehab it. And those 2 properties down in Springdale, I think, are definitely a savings to the city, not have to take down. And hopefully, he seems very energetic with the group. And I think the other group, it was Next Gen, and he sent me, I think the next day, he sent us both an email to say you could check on them and to find out how their work is. And I really feel confident that it's a good win for the city in that area. And you know, it's a savings to the city too. So it's really a positive thing for Holyoke.
All right, so the motion is to receive, adopt, allow for those B, C, and D. Clerk will call the roll. If you vote yes, you allow the transfer.
Leahy? Lisi?
Yes.
McGee?
Yes.
McGivern?
Yes.
Murphy? Sullivan?
Yes.
Tallman?
Yes.
Bacon?
Yes.
Anderson Burgos?
Yes.
Bartley?
Yes.
Graney?
Yes.
Hernandez?
Yes.
Unanimous vote.
Your vote, you approve B, C, and D. 23E, Committee on DGNR, was referred in order in accordance with Section 2-336C, the Holyoke City Code of Ordinances, and the City Council approved the license to enter with Valley Opportunity Council, recommended that be adopted.
Motion to receive, adopt the committee report and grant the license.
Motion is receive, adopt, grant the license. Under discussion, Councilor Bartley.
This is a project where we've got a really great, in my opinion, entity, a nonprofit corporation in the city of Holyoke that, by the way, Mr. President, doesn't lean on that, and it pays the residential property taxes for the properties it owns. This is a building that we've already granted CPA funds to them. The leadership of the organization, starting with Kevin Hamill and now Steve Huntley, has been, I think, impeccable. The only thing I want to point out, and it's just especially for newer counselors and counselors that may not remember this is a license to sell. I'm sorry if I sound like a broken record, but it bears repeating, especially when those of us people aren't going to be around here all the time, and some people are going to be around all the time, is that we got we had to pass this into ordinance because we had a city attorney saying, wait a minute, this property that we're going to enter, it's not a lease, it's a license, and we don't need your approval, city council. State law, city ordinance says city council is supposed to approve every single real property transfer there is, every single one. And then we had a law department employee said, no, this isn't a lease, this isn't a sale, this is a license, and you've got no authority, city council. Well, we said, okay, fine. Then we'll pass it into law, and now you got to come back to us. So that's a nonsense. Once in a while, I'm not being mean. Am I being mean? I'm just trying to have a gentle reminder that not everything that's said to us from department heads, and this was a department head, is spot on accurate, and you can push back. So in this case, we did push back, and now here's what's happening. Now they're following the ordinance. Now they got to come back to us for a license. And here we are, nice city council. Yes, we're happy to grant the license. We just want to have a chance to understand it. So with that, Mr. President, I conclude. Thank you.
All right, so motion is to receive, adopt, and grant the license. Clerk will call a roll. If you vote yes, you're voting for 23E.
Leahy?
Yes.
Lisi?
Yes.
McGee?
Yes.
McGivern?
Yes.
Murphy?
Yes.
Sullivan?
Yes.
Tallman?
Yes.
Bacon?
Yes.
Anderson Burgos?
Yes.
Bartley?
Yes.
Graney?
Yes.
Hernandez?
Yes.
Unanimous vote.
With your vote, you approve the license. 23F, the Committee on DGNR was referred in order that the Law Department and Problem Property Group provide its regular 6-month update on the city receivership program. Recommended that be complied with.
Yes, motion to receive and adopt the committee report.
Motion is receive, adopt, that's complied with. Our discussion?
Thank you. We had an excellent report from our acting solicitor. Really great. It provided, at least those of us, and I'll send it to Ryan if counselors don't have this in color in their email. I don't know if they do, so I will make sure I forward this to Ryan, and I'll ask Ryan to email it to all the counselors. It was when you see these pictures, the before and after, it's pretty depressing. Some of the stuff that goes on in your neighbors, your neighborhoods, my neighbors and yours, about what goes on from completely derelict and disgusting properties to properties that are populated by incredibly unsavory and in some cases some violent characters, and now they're moved out, and the receivers that we have on board, again, monitored by our law department, doing his due diligence, working hard in housing court, and by the justices of the Western District Housing Court, stay on point on all these receivers. And this is a program that Councilors McGee, Leahy, Bartley, Bresnahan, McGivern, a few others, we all got behind, because we got a report several years ago from attorneys Corshane and Wilson that were here, and they told us what's happening in Springfield. Well, why don't we do it in Holyoke? Well, let's get it going. So we did, and that we have some great leadership from the law department, and now look at it. This thing is up and running, and every ward in this city, I don't care, every single ward in this city is touched by the receivership program. It's not just one section of town. It's not just those people over there. Forget it. It's every single ward in every neighborhood, and it's just important. So I was really grateful to get the report. I want to make sure that whoever chairs this committee after me will keep it going and stay in touch with the law department, because we want to get these every 6-7 months, and they've been just really helpful. So I leave it at that. Thank you.
Motion is that it's been complied with. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? 23G, Committee on DGNR, who was referred in order that the City Council encourage the mayor and receiver to post information on the 2020 census on the city webpage, Channel 15, and the HPS website, and Channel 12. Information should be in English and Spanish. See the Administrative Assistant for Literature. Recommended that be complied with.
Yeah, motion, receive, and adopt committee report.
No discussion?
Yeah, it's up, it's running. Andre's got it up there, posted really fast, I think within a day of us filing the order, Mr. President. So when we had the discussion, it was, there's no real discussion in committee because we already complied with, so which is good. It's up there on the website. We'll also have somebody, I hope, from Census to come before us in one of our meetings in March or in late March, early April, to discuss more about census jobs and just how important the census is to the future of the city. Thank you.
Motion that's been complied with. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? There was no charter and rules. There was no joint school committee. Motions,
President,
orders.
Before you go to motions and orders, if I could have a personal inquiry and ask that we allow our city solicitor to have leave. We have no any votes that I see that we're going to be taking after this.
Oh.
Second.
Second.
All those in favor? All
Aye.
opposed?
Aye.
All right, 26. From Councilor Hernandez, that a handicap sign be placed at 20 Clinton Ave to ordinance with a copy to the commission.
So moved.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All
Aye.
opposed? 27 from Councilor McGivern, that a finance department be created under the leadership of the finance director.
Ordinance, please.
We'll go to ordinance. All those in favor?
Aye.
All opposed?
Mr. President, I can suspend the rules to take up items 28, 29, 30, 31, 34, 35, 37, 38 as a package and refer to the Committee on Finance.
Motion is to
37,
take
37,
28
we
to
already took up.
31, 34 to
35.
Yeah, we already did.
36,
35.
37, 38.
Yep.
And send to finance, I'll do a quick reading. 28 is the SAFE grant, 29 is the senior SAFE grant, 30 is the City Hall repair grant, 31 is from head clerk, $11,549.48 to investigator, 34 is R&M sewer to advertising, $2,000 to retirement benefits, 35 is reserves, $28,643.52 to equipment, all that to finance. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
You make a motion to suspend rules and take 32 and 33 as a package for the purpose of
Motion to
adoption.
suspend rules, take up 32 and 33 as a package. All those in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? 32 is from Sergeant Patrolman, $20,183.11 to injured on duty, of which that would be
Oh, wow. Goodness. That's next to nothing.
6. 33 is from firefighters, $2,121.32 to injured on duty. That would be 1. So motion would be receive, adopt, pass the first reading. Under discussion?
Mr. President, just an accounting move so that we understand when a firefighter or a police officer are injured on duty, that they're getting paid their salary, but the service is temporarily offline.
So motion is to pass first reading. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed?
Motion to pass the second reading.
Motion is passed the second reading.
President?
Council Bradley.
Yeah, is there, just, this has nothing to do with the orders, because obviously we support them, but we should note that Chief Pond is wrapping up February 10th. And I don't know why we don't do this on a regular basis, because I didn't do it either, but we didn't have any of the chiefs send for a proclamation. Should we have them for a proclamation or something when they're hanging, folding their tents?
Yeah.
I mean, shouldn't we do that?
We were down at,
Did we do it?
he had we filed one for the chief. I was down at an event at the fire station.
Yeah, we had
At his retirement.
his last working day.
As far as Chief Neiswanger, we did offer, but he had moved away prior to being able to invite it in.
Okay, so
I
we
think
did
he's in
that.
North
All right.
Carolina. Did we
Oh,
miss someone?
I know he is.
Chief Scott issued a proclamation for us over all that we did.
Chief Scott,
So we already gave Mr. Pond a proclamation?
yeah, we were
Oh,
there.
great, great, okay, thank you.
What's the next
Couns-
item?
Hold on, Councilor Bacon, your
I'm all
question?
set,
Oh, okay.
thanks.
So on these,
Move the question.
motion is passed the second reading. Clerk will call the roll. If you vote yes, you're voting for the transfer.
Leahy,
Yes.
Lisi,
Yes.
That's right,
McGee,
move the question.
Yes.
McGivern,
Yes.
Murphy,
Yes.
Sullivan,
Yes.
Tallman,
Yes.
Bacon,
Yes.
Anderson Burgos,
Yes.
Bartley,
Yes.
Graney,
Yes.
Hernandez.
Yes.
With your vote, you approve those transfers. 39 is from Councilor Murphy, that a handicap sign be
Ordinance?
placed at
Motion to go to
93
the ordinance
Jackson.
committee?
Ordinance with a copy to the commission. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? 40 from Councilor Murphy, order that the city council request the city clerk's office to comply a list of handicap approved parking locations within the past 10 years. So
Make a
this
mo-
would be received, sent to,
I'm making a motion, it'd be adopted, but if I can, I want to,
Send a copy. Send a copy to ordinance.
I'll send a copy.
all right, so motion would be receive, adopt, and you'd want a copy sent to ordinance under discussion, Councilor
Yeah,
Murphy?
first of all, I'd like to thank our city clerk. She happened to meet me one day, and we were just chatting, and I told her that I was looking at doing this, and she said, let me see how quickly I can do it, and the next day I had the list. So I thought there were going to be a lot more. There's 115 handicap spots that were granted in the last 10 years. I have had a number, and one of the people that got a handicap plate today was one who notified me that they were leaving another place. But there are so many people that have gotten handicap plates that are no longer there, according to the neighbors. And yet the plates are still there. And so the goal here would be that we would send a notice from the city clerk's office. They would have 30 days to respond if they're still in need of the handicap plate. And if not, then we would go to, we would get a list from the city clerk's office, go to the ordinance committee, and then repeal those ordinances. I mean, one of the areas, there were 7 handicap plates within about 70 yards on both sides of the street. And people have told me most of those people are gone. So I don't know if that's true, but I'm pretty sure that they're not going to try to deprive somebody. So I think this is a process that can smooth it, that we're going to get back to taking care of the people that need the plates. And so I'm hoping that we would adopt it. And I would defer to the city clerk if she thinks that's not a good idea.
So, Councilor Bacon?
Oh, I'm all set, I'm sorry. I'm just,
Councilor Lisi, sorry. Councilor.
Just really quick question, through the chair to the clerk, if you don't mind. How do you think you would request the reply? Like, are you going to expect like a written letter or a phone call or?
I've just talked about it like briefly with Councilor Murphy, and I was thinking I could just write a letter and have a portion like at the bottom of the letter, maybe just like a tear off and send a self-addressed stamped envelope, just so residents aren't expected to have postage as well.
Right. Thank you
just
for
something
that.
really simple that they can fill out and send back.
Mm-hmm. Thanks.
If that was the will of the body.
And I think that, to me,
Okay, yeah.
that's a great, and we're sending them the notice. They're obviously, if they're there, they're going to reply, and they're going to want to keep the plate. So, I mean, I just think we meet the need without having things there that are no longer needed.
So motion is receive, adopt, send copy to ordinance. Councilor
Just a
McGivern?
copy to the Disability Commission.
And copy to
keep them in the
commission.
loop.
Very good.
Anyone else? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Counselor, 41 from Counselor Murphy, order that the school department and the Department of Public Works seek to partner with Mass DOT Safe Routes and school program to seek funds to improve safety for students walking and biking to school.
Motion to be referred to the joint council and school committee.
Motion is receive and
With a
refer
copy to
joint
the superintendent of DPW as well.
So receive, refer to joint committee with a copy to the appropriate departments. Under discussion, Councilor Murphy? Or?
Yeah, this was a suggestion of one of the people that goes by Dean School, and they told me, well, we ought to be going after some of the safe route grants, and I never heard of it, but then I looked it up, and there's supposedly money to try to provide routes, and as long as you have students from the 8th grade and less. So, I mean, I'm also suggesting, I know Dean definitely could use a walkway.
Yeah.
But other schools, I'm sure, have other areas, so I wanted to have the whole school system in terms of how kids get to school, and whether it's walking or biking or whatever, that they are all going to be in a safe environment, or we can get some funding to help do that.
Okay. Councilor McGivern?
Just a note, I got an email at 9:29 this evening, forwarded to us from Liz LaFawn, that there is a meeting scheduled for the joint committee, which I think is thankful that we are being notified. And I asked that we put that on our calendar to make sure that we don't double book that night, because that's happened in the past too, where one of our committees decide to meet. It's February 12th.
At what time?
6.
6.
Okay.
You're on the committee, aren't you?
I know, but I'm just want to see if I get a notice.
All right.
Move this along, come on. Is the email forwarded to the administrative assistant? Is he on that?
Ryan forwarded it to us. I hope he forwarded it to all of
He's
us. right?
supposed to be setting them up.
Just got it now, huh? Oh, okay.
He's multitask up there, you know?
This is great.
That was at
This is great.
9:18. No, just kidding. All right, so two joint committee with the copy to the right departments. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
You guys aren't busy, are you?
Excuse me, just
Yeah,
a
Councilor
note
Green.
on that joint school committee, those meetings, so the public knows they're
Here.
gonna be here.
They're here.
No,
Correct.
They're not at Dean anymore.
They are here in the chambers. 42 from Councilor Murphy, order that the parking on
42 and 43 can be referred to the ordinance committee.
So 42 and 43 as a package. All those in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Parking on South Ray Street from 45 feet south of Jackson Street intersection, so that'd be the ordinance. And 43, that no parking be allowed on the west side of South Ray Street. So both the ordinance. All those in favor?
Aye.
All
Aye.
opposed? 44 from Councilor Murphy, order that posted speed limit for Main Street, section 86-212 be replaced with the following, and then you have a list of everything.
Make a motion to refer to the ordinance committee.
So the
And
ordinance, all those in
If I can just make
favor?
one comment on
Aye.
that, if I can. Just the safety zone, traffic lights and radar have just been installed and they're finally operating, and I've kind of stayed out there 10 or 15 minutes watching people go north and then trying to watching people, and it definitely has had an impact. So the engineer then told me there's other things we need to do to really make it so that we're not going from 35 to 20, and then, so this is an attempt to try to make the 20 zone and then the rest of it be a little more smooth going through the neighborhood. So originally we didn't think this was going to be necessary, but he went back and he said this is what we need to do to really make it a safe road all the way through. But the state safety zone is definitely working.
Good. So to ordinance. Councilor Tallman.
Yeah, just briefly, I want to state that I went by there. I was up in Tokenigi, came down by Ingleside and went by that sign it was like the lights were flashing on the thing when it was going, and it does give the speed and everything. And I think this is probably the newest type of devices they have out there. And I did catch them coming back. A couple of cars were going a little bit fast coming back the other way south. But I think when you see that and you see that flashing and you're supposed to go, say, 20 during the school day and you're hitting 30, 35, I mean, that thing it stands out. I think that's a great job they did. And anything you can do to make the walkway, the safe streets for the students there, I think would be great.
If I can, I'm sorry.
Well, Councilor McGivern.
I just want to compliment the good Ward 2 councilor and let him know that it is working, because I got a call from a constituent who said they were coming up from West Springfield and might have been going a little bit fast, and some strange guy was standing by the sign pointing at it. And they slowed down immediately when they saw this strange character.
Not a strange character.
I'm not wearing that hat again.
Councilor Murphy.
Yeah, I should have. It is a brand new system, and it was so brand new that Joe O'Connor and the other crew that were trying to put it together, it took 2 or 3 times, and they actually ended up having somebody coming in from the company to actually go over it. They went over it, and then they had to come back again, but they finally got it working. And yeah, you have those flashing yellow lights. And I know Marquardt Ford has also thought it slowed traffic down. So
that's great.
All right. So that's the ordinance. 45 is from Councilor Murphy and Councilor Sullivan. This is order that the Finance Committee meet with the Mayor, Treasurer, Auditor to discuss bonding for the demolition of the following buildings recommended. And there's a list of the buildings. Estimated cost of demolition would be $2,084,000.
I'm gonna make a motion that we actually adopt the order and send it to the mayor for 2 reasons.
So the motion is to receive, adopt, or discussion, Councilor Murphy?
Yeah. If you recall, back in October, this council voted unanimously to request the mayor to consider putting a bond together to get rid of our worst buildings, rather than doing one here and one there. And the estimated cost was just about the same per year. In January, in December, in January, I sent the mayor an email, and he did say to me, he is open to doing this, and I would only support this if I am presented with specific buildings, those deemed the highest priority by the problem property group. Some of the worst are likely to be privately owned, and some are, but that he would support it. About a month later, I got a letter or an email from the problem property group with the properties that are listed here, which I think comes just to about the 2 million we talked to. Councilor Sullivan then approached me, and I know he talked to Mike McManus and several other people about the equipment that was there. The estimate with the equipment, if we add that to the bond, we would spend less money than they are expecting to do on demolition, because we would be able to do much of that ourselves. So I can tell you, I've already had a couple of calls on a couple of those, but one of them, we're talking about spending several $100,000 on the Boys Club playground area. One of the buildings that we're talking about taking down is on Nick Cosmas Way and Cabot Street, which is falling down. And that is on this list. So, and there's a couple others that are in that same situation. So I would encourage us to get this to the mayor, and he's got to initiate it. He says that he would support it, and I would ask him to put a bond together and bring it to us, and then we can vote on the bond at that time.
Councilor Sullivan.
Yeah, and I agree with everything Councilor Murphy has said. I would like to, I think in our original order too, we asked bond or stabilization for purpose of discussion in committee. Also, the piece of equipment using the Bartley amendment, if we had the 2 million in there with this piece of equipment, be on this list, as other problem properties develop, they could come before the council under this. As we move through the inventory of really blighted properties that we have to dispose of, this would allow us the option. You don't know when you do these kind of demolitions what other things you run into. It can come in with the crew we have now working for the city, and this piece of equipment could come in significantly under this and allow the council the chance to see 5, 6, 7, 8 more properties come on under the same amount of money. So this is long overdue. I think if anybody saw what just happened on High Street again a couple of weeks ago, where a building started to come down right on the sidewalk, right? And within days, the very building next to it, nothing to do with this collapse, but the building next to it, the roof blew off and was hanging down the front of the building. Several tons of roofing material just hanging over the sidewalk on High Street. We've got to get going on some of these properties, more aggressive as far as the city taking them also. I know some are still in private hands. We don't like to do that. But the intention here isn't to take them and hold on to them. The intention is to take them and demolish them and get them back on the tax rolls.
Councilor Tallman.
Yeah, just briefly, if I could be added on to that in the maker's order. I know we talked about that earlier, and I'm just looking at this excavator and how much that could be helpful to taking some of these buildings down. And just recently, about 2 weeks ago, I talked to Eileen Kavanaugh at an event, and she did state that building right there by the Boys and Girls Club, they had $300,000, $50,000 park, and the building right there is still fenced in, and can anything be done about that? And, you know, state-of-the-art boys club and park, and then you got a building that's, you know, falling down on Cabot and Nick Osmond's Way. So I think something like this would be really beneficial, and I'd be happy also to talk to the mayor to see if we can get this moving.
I welcome your signature.
Councilor Vacan.
Thank you, Mr. President. I know we've had discussions about this before, but would a number of these buildings qualify under the Community Development Block Grant? I know the money got moved out of demo in the past, but
Short answer is yes.
maybe we could prevail upon the mayor to use that resource?
Go ahead.
The short answer is yes, but that's $100,000 or $200,000.
Yeah, so for one building, maybe?
Yep.
Okay.
I mean, realistically, I mean, there's probably 100 buildings in Holyoke right now that need to come down.
Councilor Lisi and then Councilor Craney.
Thank you, and through the chair, is this list of properties, like what the problem property group submitted in full, or did you and Councilor Murphy select a handful from that?
We had nothing to do with the selection process, that unless Mr. Murphy did, I didn't. This was their list of the top priorities. It's not the entire, this is just the worst.
Councilor Murphy, is there?
Yeah, it was these 12 properties were the list that the problem property group gave. And there's a couple that I look back from when I first got on the council from last year, and the demolition cost, several of these were on that list back then when I asked, and the demolition cost is going up. So the longer, and the status is they're going to be demolished. So, I mean, I think the sooner we do it, not only do we change the image of the city, when you have a building fall down on High Street or anywhere else for that matter, the one down on Cabot and the Cosmos Way, the image it sends for the city is terrible, and we need to deal with it. I mean, it's there. You know, I was reminiscing, and I looked at a campaign I ran in 1975, and what was I looking at? Boarded up buildings that needed to be either renovated or demolished. So I hate to say things have changed and gotten better. We've gotten some improvements, but we need to get it done.
Councilor Green.
I want to continue.
We can also pay close attention to the gentleman that we approved tonight about demolishing the term hall. We can piggyback this proposal along with this gentleman can do with the term hall and the other property on James Street to see how that comes out. So I think it would work together.
Councilor Lisi?
Thank you. So I just wanted to note that it's 11 properties, and I think that in general, you know, I definitely am an advocate of historic preservation, but I think what we're seeing time and time again with buildings falling down is that we have, in many cases, lost the opportunity to save some of these buildings, and they are absolutely a public safety hazard. And I understand that, you know, there's definitely been efforts, you know, post-war in Europe to, you know, save and rehab really beautiful buildings that are older than what we have here, but they've been maintained better along the way. And so that's why you create that opportunity for restoration and preservation. But I mean, I think what, you know, what we're really seeing is that we have missed the window of opportunity for so many buildings, and we are going to be losing a portion of our historic infrastructure. And while that saddens me, I think that the public safety issues need to be addressed.
So motion is to receive, adopt, and you want a copy to finance maybe, or what do you want, or?
Copy to finance is fine. Adopt and send to the mayor, the treasurer, and the auditor.
Yep, motion is receive, adopt, send to mayor, treasurer, auditor, copy to finance. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. 46 from Councilor Murphy, that DGNR committee invited in Sue as project manager,
Make a
Mike
motion
Williams.
to go to DGR.
So
Second.
DGNR, all those in favor?
Aye.
All
Aye.
opposed? 47 from Councilor Murphy, that in support of the South Hoyoke Homes project, design, revision, housing in Carlos Vega Park in South Hoyoke, the City Council approve a home rule petition to exempt the Hoyoke Housing Authority Development Project, Mass General Law, Chapter 149, and all prevailing wages. So this would be to...
Well, there's two things. If it goes to a committee, they are in... Representative Vega has asked to try to get this approved and go to him sometime in late February, early March, because he needs to get it on the docket in March.
So DGR?
So
I'll be meeting twice in February, so we can do that in ordinance if you like.
Okay, that would be fine.
To ordinance?
Yep, that'd be fine. And just quick, two things. They've told me by doing this, the cost of the project will be less because there'll be less money invested in the bid process. It'll be cheaper, faster, and they are still paying prevailing wage. So it just allows the contractor to hire the subcontractors rather than the housing authority having to do all of that.
All right, so to ordinance. All those in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? There is one late file from Councilor Hernandez, or that a bilingual notice be placed on the next invoice to go out from our DPW as it relates to the do's and don'ts related to trash pickup in the city of Hoyoke. I can translate the Spanish version.
Yes.
So this would be to
Send
receive,
to-
adopt,
yep.
and send to DPW. Under discussion, or?
No, I mean, basically is what I have there. I would like to clarify, I've had a lot of phone calls from constituents of Ward 4 that have some issues, and I spoke with DPW, and they, they have their own complaints about what our citizens do. So I think it would be great to reiterate and clarify everything and have it in both Spanish and English.
Okay, so motion is to receive, adopt, with a copy and send to DPW.
Send to the-
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? There's nothing else. The motion would be to
Adjourn.
adjourn. All those in favor? All
Aye.
opposed?